And also, the president was at the United Nations, spoke about the economy, and as part of his new challenge towards the African continent, he called, and this is the second or third time he's actually made this call, for the start of a new economic paradigm that benefits Africans. Again, took a swipe at the credit ratings agencies, as he's done in the past two speeches he's made to the international community. But that has not changed anything for one of the credit ratings agencies. They were busy this week downgrading Ghana to, is it a double C or a triple C? We'll try and make sense of what that means and the rationale behind that, as Ghana fights off record inflation levels. Cost of living is at record highs. Government needs money. It needs to find money quickly, and by quickly it means now. Then on the second part of the show, we'll discuss a bit of politics, where the NDC is kicking against attempt by the EC to push for the Ghana card to be the sole means for demonstrating one's eligibility for the registration and acquisition of a voter's ID card. It's a conversation that has come up before, but the NDC is taking a far more determined stance now on the matter. We'll try and understand what is at stake with this particular policy from the Electoral Commission. So all this and more coming up on The Big Issue over the next 3 hours. Welcome back, and as always, it's an interactive program. So for those of you who want to join us, share your comments, your thoughts on the state of the economy. I'm sure most of you are tired by now of, ratings downgrades and what it means. All you know is that the cost of living is high when you go to the market, but it does have an impact on you one way or the other. So we'll try and make sense of that. So you can share your thoughts on what all these things means to you. For those of you who also understand the bond market and are invested in it, what does this latest conversation mean for you as a holder of local currency bonds? 0549 986 996, 0550 5832, 0549 986 996, and 0550 5832. Those are our WhatsApp lines. You can share your thoughts on Twitter at Citi973, Twitter handle. And the hashtag is The Big Issue, or you can send it to me at Godfred Akutoboafo at East Sportsman, using the same hashtag, The Big Issue. We're also streaming live on our Facebook pages, Citi TEGH and Citi973. Share the live stream, and you can leave your comments. If you miss out, just head to YouTube, and then CitiTube, CITITUBE. Subscribe when you get there, very important. Subscribe, and then you can type in The Big Issue, and you can catch playback of whatever episode of The Big Issue that you've missed. Okay, so let's have a conversation about the economy now and what the government has been seeking to do. So the report is that the government is set to begin talks with domestic bondholders on a restructuring of its local currency debt as part of discussions to secure $3 billion from the IMF. Now, the meeting, first reported by Bloomberg, will involve some of the largest local investors, which includes banks and fund managers. Government and its investors are expected to discuss debt reorganization that could entail extension of maturities and haircuts. All these strange terms when it comes to finance. What is a haircut doing in finance? But that is what government is looking to discuss. Debt reorganization that could entail extension of maturities and haircuts on principal and interest payment. This move is set to be part of a debt sustainability plan required by the IMF. If looking at Ghana's debt numbers, basically we are looking at some estimated at 76, some estimated at 78% of GDP. As at June 2022, our debt stood at $40 billion. That's the public debt. And that's equivalent to 78% of GDP. Interest payments have been the government's largest annual expenses 2019 and were its second largest expense for 5 straight years prior to that. And this is data that you can easily verify from the Finance Ministry. And if you look at our domestic debt accounts, that also accounts for more than 80% of that conversation. So, and then we also had the Bank of Ghana this week do something interesting, and I'll play a bit of a report on that. So, as part of their strategy to arrest the slide of the Citi, they apprehended 70 individuals and entities engaged in the business of buying and selling foreign exchange without a license from the central bank. So let's listen to that report, put all these things together. When we come in, Tumami here is already with us in studio. We'll be joined by Jerome Kuse, who's an economist and financial analyst from Kinkuja, as always with us. Professor Lord Mensah from the University of Ghana Business School, and Alfred Thompson, he's a banker, will also join us.
This one is another money. It's new.
That means the owner is outside.
You are here.
They call them and
they say they don't have anything. So you go to
that is not
everything. Here.
This was part of a special operation organized by the Bank of Ghana and the Ghana Police Service on foreign exchange parallel market operators, otherwise known as black market operators. In all, over 70 operators from identified hotspots within the central business districts of Accra, specifically the Rawlings Park, Makola and Tudu, were apprehended by the police for prosecution. The purpose of the operation was to clamp down on individuals and entities engaging in the business of buying and selling foreign exchange without a license from the central bank in violation of Ghana's foreign exchange laws. The move also forms part of efforts to sanitize the Forex Bureau sector and stop all market practices fueling the city's fast depreciation. Addressing the media after the exercise, head of the Foreign Exchange Bureau office at the Bank of Ghana, Adjoa Kunedu Torto, called for more collaboration to bring the black market operations to the barest minimum.
Bank of Ghana, together with Ghana Police Service, decided to undertake this long-awaited clamping of illegal foreign exchange dealers from the streets of Accra. And it is something that we intend to do across the country. And as you all know, if you don't have a license to operate in Ghana, a license issued by the central bank, it is an offense to trade in any foreign currency. And for the past few years, we see them seriously engaging in this illegal act. Public education has gone out, and still we see these unlicensed institutions around. So today, we decided to start something that will be an ongoing thing throughout the country. We decided, and luckily or fortunately for us, we happened to get over 76 illegal operators on the streets.
She also used the opportunity to issue a strong caution to the general public to desist from engaging the services of foreign exchange businesses operating without a license.
It is important that the general public desist from engaging in business with these unlicensed ones. We have over 480 licensed Forex bureaus scattered across the country. We will encourage everyone to deal with the licensed institutions. And as you go in, we are saying that go with your Ghana card to transact business and insist on your receipt. For those who find themselves engaging in this parallel market operations, we are saying you are inviting the law enforcement agencies to come after you. It comes with a lot of punishment, and it is not good to engage. Let's help Ghana grow.
Yeah, so that wrapped up that report. And I guess I'll begin the conversation from there because that's something I found pretty intriguing. Toma, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, so Toma me here needs no introduction, financial journalist of many decades in this country, edited almost every major financial newspaper that is private in this country. He's here to work for the state, but if it's private, he's worked there. Jerome Kuse, financial analyst, is also with us. Jerome, good morning.
Good morning,
Hello,
Godfred.
Jerome.
Good morning, Godfred, and good morning to all your viewers.
Thank you very much. Jerome is, you can regularly find him on Citi Talk, his blog spot, does a lot of financial education there. So thank you for joining us. Franklin, good morning. Well, Franklin, President of Imani Africa. Professor Lord Mensah, good morning.
Good morning, if you can hear me loud and clear.
Oh, I can certainly hear you, Professor Mensah. He's an economist with the University of Ghana Business School. So let me start the conversation from the Bank of Ghana and its operations regarding the black market. It's been a significant concern for them, particularly because of the slide of the cedi. We've explained several factors that have led to this. But Jerome, let me start from you on this particular matter. What were your thoughts when you saw the action by the Bank of Ghana in its bid to stave off the slide of the cedi with this particular one, arresting operators in the black market?
Okay. Godfrey, let me start by saying the Bank of Ghana has every right to enforce its regulations with respect to foreign exchange dealings in the country. And I think if you listen to the head of the Forex department of the Bank of Ghana, she was clear that their intention was trying to enforce the existing regulations because it's something that has always been in their plan to do. So I think I want to keep that perspective first of all. And why I'm saying that is that when it comes to actually checking the slide of a currency depreciation, it is not the activities of these people that necessarily leads to the currency depreciating. These people are small players in the grand scheme of things. And even though their activities encourage speculation, that is, it makes it easier for people to buy and hold foreign currency as an investment, as opposed to buying stocks or bonds or other assets. Despite they facilitating that, they are not the cause of the cedi depreciation, and even arresting all of them will not lead to the cedi reducing its rate of depreciation. So that's my initial thoughts. So, now, okay.
Yeah. So then, why does what in your estimation is the Bank of Ghana thinking with this particular plan? Because you say even if they arrested everybody in that space, it might not be the solution. Does it at least even give them some wiggle room in this fight to save the cedi, this particular line of action?
I think the only way you could say that this would help the cedi is if you consider this to be a kind of a warning to the larger market that they tend to be more to actually enforce all the foreign exchange rules more stringently than they've done in the past. And so if they start with these low-level people, then it means that they are going to licensed operators next to ensure that they are following all the regulations laid down for them. Maybe they are going to commercial banks next. They are going to exporters next. That is the only way, the only benefit in terms of having any impact on the cedi's depreciation that I can see from this exercise. So I would like to maintain the stance that they are simply enforcing the law and that the relationship between this and CD depreciation is not necessarily linear, or it may not have any relationship to it at all.
Okay, please continue with your point. You're making a second point.
The problem, the larger problem with CD depreciation, I'm sure maybe later we'll discuss that. We know the debt crisis,
Yes.
we know the financial stress.
All right, then hold on for me. Let me just do a quick round on this, and then we can move into that particular conversation a bit. Tuma, so your thoughts. Jerome says not too much of a dent to be made by this, but they're enforcing the law. So that's how he sees it. Simple.
Yeah, first of all, enforcing the law is the right thing to do at any time, in any situation. You have to enforce the law. But I slightly disagree about when it says that there's no effect on the rate. Now, let me tell you why I say this. Yes, as he has pointed out, most of the forex transactions done on the formal market. All right, the amount of transaction on the black market is not really much. You can't really determine exchange rates in Ghana. However, the premium in terms of the rates between the black market and the formal market serves as an indicator of how much excessive or extra demand pressure there is on the formal market. What I mean is this: if the black market is 10%, the black market is 10% higher than the formal market rate. It's different from if it was like 30% higher. That would give an indication that there's so much pressure on the formal market, and they are having to go to the black market. That's why the rates, that's why the yields, the rates widen. The difference in rates widens. And now when that happens, that serves as the trigger for people to now say, oh, then let me hold dollars as a store of value, or let me use dollars as an investment in order to make profit. Because what it now tells the people is that there's a lot of pressure on the formal market, which means the exchange rates, even the formal market, the rates are going to change. They're going to go higher. So people now say, okay, very good. Like a simple example, Godfrey. Remember when the gist came out that the information came out that even bulk oil distribution companies were having to go to black market. What happened next? By the next day, there was a sharp cedi depreciation. Because people now realize that, that means the formal market can't keep up. If they can't keep up, definitely it's going to lead to further depreciation. Let me buy dollars and hold. That is the effect of the black market. It's not based on economics, it's based on psychology, the psychology of people who deal in Forex. Okay, so please, if you can remove the black market, it would help exchange rate, because it will now give people the impression that the formal market is taking care of things. Now, but there's an interesting thing here, Godfrey. First of all, as Jerome said, you can't even keep this thing up. You have black markets all around the country. Now, you will notice that it was the Bank of Ghana's prodding that led to the police doing these raids. Now, the conventional wisdom is that the police do not attack the black marketeers because they're on the take, that the black marketeers pay them off. Well, that is partly true, but there's another reason too. You see, the police are understaffed, they're under-resourced. They have murder cases facing them, there are kidnapping cases facing them, so they tend to prioritize. Right now, if you Godfrey heard that police have abandoned the investigation of the Marquesim murders in order to close down the black market at Marquesim, I don't think you're very happy with the police. They're getting their priorities wrong. So that is another issue. Now, for how long can this pressure on the black marketeers be kept up? The police have other fish to chew. The Bank of Ghana itself, they cannot afford to keep on pushing the police all the time. And it's nationwide. The Bank of Ghana doesn't even have presence nationwide to push the police. All right? So you need to find a more permanent solution. And it's simple. liberalize your formal market, at least the retail end, which is represented by forex bureaus. Why do people go to black market? It's not just good, not the rate, it's availability and ease of transaction. But if you have used the black market before, you will know that, look, when you go to black market, first of all, you are worried that you might be duped. Second, you are afraid you might even be robbed. You immediately leave the place, the armed robbers are watching. So, I mean, if on the formal market, there was a chance to buy forex, to deal in forex freely, you will go to the formal market. It's safer, all right? But now you have a situation where, because of the restrictions on what's eligible to go into the formal market, people now go to the black market. If you ease that, you ease the psychological problem which I started my argument with. In terms of the fact that, okay, look, we sometimes estimate the size of the black market. So when the bulk oil distribution companies started going to the black market to source forex, to import petroleum products, and we're talking about large amounts, the black market was meeting their demand. Now, imagine if all that money they were going to take from the black market was on the formal market. They wouldn't have needed to go to the black market. They wouldn't even be a black market. All the money is on the formal market. Now there will be no information going around, no worries going around that the formal market cannot meet the demands of genuine companies. All right? So there will be less worry about the fact that we have forex shortages. So there will be less incentive for people to go and store up dollars in the hope of making a profit, or at least storing value. Because as far as I'm concerned, there's no forex crisis, so the exchange rate will not move. It's just psychology. This is not economics, this is psychology. You understand? So what the Bank of Ghana used to do is ease the restrictions on the formal market, especially at the retail end. All you do is you take out clear criminal money, like money laundering money, money generated from something you know is illegal. All right, because that could get you in trouble in the international community. But apart from that, let everything go without questions.
But wouldn't that be hard? Because I've been in quite a few other African countries. It's very hard to change dollars in those countries. It's really rigid. You will struggle.
Yeah.
So why should we make it easy?
So you won't have this kind of situation you're in now, which is pushing your CD to depreciate. The depreciation of the CD now is based on, well, yes, the capital outflows of bondholders, but it's also based on sheer psychology. People are panicking. People feel that there's not enough forex. But a lot of that forex shortage, which we are calculating, is there on the black market. If you put it on the formal market, there will be less reason to panic.
So, in your estimation, deal with the perception and the panic issues, and everything else will follow.
It will definitely help. It will not solve all the problems. We have a fundamental problem with that. I'm sure we'll get to that later in the program. Yeah. But in terms of this black market issue, the black aspect of it, it will really the less black market activity there is, and the narrower the premium in pricing on the black market over the formal market, the better for everybody.
Thank you. Lord Benson, Prof.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Your thoughts on this Bank of Ghana exercise? So far, Tome and Jerome agree largely, just one point of divergence on the whole exercise, but they all seem to think this is not sustainable. Tome, on the other hand, seems to think, okay, why not make it easier to bring the black market into the formal market as a solution? Your thoughts on this exercise?
Yeah, thank you very much once again, and good morning to my co-panelists out there. You know, clearly, it is an exercise from my end, I think, will not make that much of impact as far as, the control of the depreciation of the CD is concerned. Now, let's look at what makes the black market and the composition of the black market clearly. When we talk about black market, it is an underground, market, i.e., which forms part of the underground economy. It is difficult to identify them. It is difficult to measure the economic activities, and therefore you cannot easily manage. Now, the kind of soup that Bank of Ghana did with the police clearly is going to give the black market relocation. So they went to tiptoe lane. Because you cannot identify them, they can disintegrate and still operate. If they come together to form a cluster, that is when you can easily identify them and say, I'm going to get them here. But what about being in their houses and then taking transactions on their phones? How would you identify them? For me, the question has to do with how does the black market get the dollar? Because if you look at, in terms of, if you split the market into two, the formal market and then the black market. The market that can easily have access to the dollar is the formal market. But the question is, how does the black market get the dollar? And for the fact that the black market is getting the dollar through scarce means, they put up certain premium, which makes it different from what the formal market is offering. So effectively, we should, for the police to go straight to the black market, they should, the Bank of Ghana to go straight to the black market, they should assess themselves, run through all the banks and see how does the money or the dollar filter to the black market for transaction to go on there. If the black market has no dollar and it turns up that there's demand, they cannot meet that demand, there won't be market. So effectively, there is a supply and demand activities going on in that black market. So I would say that instead of going on the street chasing something that you cannot easily, catch. I mean, 70 in Accra. Have you been to Kumasi, Alaba? Have you been to other places that, the dollar is being used, as foreign market is going on in a black space? No, you can't go around, getting all this black market that exists. In the worst case, they're going to disintegrate, be in their homes, at the end of the day, take phone calls and meet at a place and then exchange, transactions. So for me, it's a dangerous market. You cannot easily identify them. Therefore, you cannot measure them. And as a result of that, you can't manage. So leave them alone. But then you must answer the question as to how does the dollar filter itself into the black market. If you're able to block it, it should be able to go a long way to help. If you are looking at the transmission of the dollar all the way to the market where individuals and businesses can transact, it comes on the Bank of Ghana, and then to the banking hall, and then to the Forex bureaus. So if the line that makes, or the barrier that makes the dollar filter to the market, to the black market, is between the Forex bureaus and then the black market, it must be looked at. If it's between the banks and the black market, it must be looked at. And I won't be surprised for someone to go to the banking hall to be told that, hey, look, if you go to this allergy, you can get a quantum of dollars that you want at the black market. So effectively, the fine thin line between where the dollar is concentrated, i.e., it could be the regulator, from the regulator level to the banking hall, and then to the Forex bureaus, we must be able to block these channels. And that will be able to help, control the shipping of the dollar to the black market, rather than allowing it to go to the black market and chasing it where you cannot find this black market, you cannot identify them, you cannot measure them, who they are. They catch them at the tiptoe lane or whatever the name is. The next time, they won't come there anymore. They'll be on the different street doing their own thing. In the worst case, they're going to disintegrate completely, use different mechanisms of communication, and then they'll be doing their transactions. So I believe in how you can stop it at a point where it's supposed to be formalized. And then possibly bring up regulations. If possible, you assign the various Forex bureaus to the individual banks to serve as monitors as to how the Forex bureaus operate. Then the regulator will also control the banks as to how they move the dollar to the Forex bureaus. So effectively, these are mechanisms that we may have to put in place rather than allowing the dollar to sip down and then getting to the point where it has disintegrated, getting to several hands, then you start chasing it, you waste resources, you waste time, you will not catch anything. Let me put it that way.
Interesting thoughts from Professor Lord Mensah on this exercise. And I'm sure most of you have thoughts on this. Quite a few messages coming through on this matter, quite a few people concerned by this. I will try and today engage with as many of the messages. So at Rab Mod, for instance, is asking, has the arrest of 77 and less black market operators lowered the exchange rate exercise in futility? So that seems to be a general theme with this particular exercise that was conducted by the Bank of Ghana. Yes, enforcing the law, but overall, what impact will it make? Yes, you wanted to make another point.
That's very important. Even the little impact which people think he could make, for that, even that to happen, we have to make sure that the people who have been arrested are arraigned before a court of law and are prosecuted competently. I'm not saying they have been found guilty, but we must make a clear attempt to prosecute them for everybody, for their mates, for their peers, to see that we are serious. If nothing is heard about it, the next thing the guys are back on the streets. Their peers will sit back and say yes, that we can engage in impunity. Because when we're arrested, just like drug pushers, the next day they're back on the streets doing their nefarious activities.
Point well made there. So now we can just build on that, keep this part of the conversation in mind, because we'll keep gravitating towards the city in the larger scope of the conversation. And this conversation that the government wants to have with domestic bondholders on a restructuring of its local currency debt as part of discussions in the build-up towards receiving some money from the IMF. And I'll bring in Jerome here to do a bit of an exercise for me. So, Jerome, I want you to do this.
The IRR, do they need formula sheet for IRR?
Yes, they do.
Professor Lord Mensah's microphone, please, if that can be dealt with. Thank you very much. So, Jerome, let me start from you. Can you explain for us, first of all, how Ghana borrows? And then you can move towards how we've gotten to this point where the government wants to have this conversation and what its implications are and what it involves. If you can do that for me, thank you.
Okay. So Ghana, like every other government, borrows to finance both its recurring expenditure and capital expenditure. And when you talk about the two main types, you look at borrowing on your domestic market or borrowing externally. When you borrow externally, you have two options. You can either borrow through concessionary borrowing, that is where you get either a partner country or a multilateral organization to lend you some money. But the problem that developing economies have generally faced is that when you go through that option, it's either the amounts are too small, it comes with too many conditions, or it's tied with it's tied to a project. And so you've seen more and more developing countries going the other way, which is commercial borrowing. They go to the markets, the private markets, and then they try to borrow as much as they can. But that comes with higher interest rates because these are private investors. They don't have any political or developmental objective. Their only objective is to get their money back and to get as much profit from that as possible. Then we have the domestic borrowing, which is about borrowing from your own economy, from people in your economy. So we are talking about banks, pension funds, individuals, investment firms, and so on. When you borrow from your own, when you borrow domestically, the advantage is that you are borrowing in your own currency. There are exceptions, of course, such as the domestic US dollar bond, but that is generally not the norm. When you borrow domestically, you are borrowing in your own currency. And the advantage of that is that when the exchange rate depreciates, the value of the loan does not, gets larger, because let's say you borrowed $100 million US when your exchange rate was $1 US to 5 Ghana cedis. Now that it's $1 US to 10 Ghana cedis. Without an increase in the interest rate or the size of the loan, the value of the loan in terms of cedis has doubled. And so that is a disadvantage of borrowing in foreign currency and why governments would prefer to borrow domestically. Now, do you want me to continue with what has happened to Ghana, or just to explain what the restructuring will do? Hello, Godfrey.
Go on.
Okay, so now with Ghana over the past 15 years has been experimenting with Eurobonds, which are simply loans denominated in US dollars. Now, the problem is we have grown to love these Eurobond inflows because apart from the fact that they are bringing us money to support the budget, it has the other effect of strengthening your currency because you are getting Forex to show up the reserves of the Bank of Ghana. And so when you borrow in cedis, the only thing you are getting is that you are getting money to support your budget. But when you borrow in dollars, you are getting Forex reserves from the Bank of Ghana, which can then give you cedis to support your budget. Now, for as long as you can repay your debt without it significantly affecting your deficit, then you do not have too much of a problem. So let's say you owe, let's take an example of the USA, which has a debt to GDP of about 120%. So even though their debt is large, if you look at their debt payments, it's only about 15% of the revenue for a fiscal year. So only about 15% of all the money that the US government generates goes into paying the debt. Then you come to Ghana. If you look at the fiscal year figures for the first half of 2022, you realize that out of all the revenue generated, 55% of it went into paying the interest on debt. And if you combine the payment of the interest on the debt and the payment of public sector compensations, you realize that those two expense items alone are more than the total amount of revenue generated for the first half of the year. And so government has found itself in a very sticky situation, a very difficult situation where the interest expense is simply too large on the books. There's no wiggle room. You cannot necessarily spend on anything else without going back to borrowing. And what has complicated this matter is that from the start of 2022, the international capital markets have been closed to Ghana. People are no longer lending money to Ghana. So the government has been forced to rely solely on the domestic market. Now, when you borrow more and more from the domestic market, what happens is that the investors require a higher rate of interest because the more domestic bonds you hold, the higher your default risk becomes, especially looking at the fact that about 42% of all your revenue goes to paying interest on domestic debt alone. So the total interest payments are 55%, but domestic debt alone is 42%. So that explains why at the start of this year, Treasury bill rates were about 12.5%. Now they are about 30%. We also have the issue of inflation. That has been a contributing factor. But the fact that government has had to rely solely on domestic borrowing has ballooned the exposure of so many sectors to the government. And so it has made government's ability to pay, or people's perception of government's ability to pay, lower than it was at the start of the year. So what can government do in a situation where it's spending 55% of all its revenue to pay debt? It's either we get external help in the form of the IMF, or we are able to get access to the international capital markets again to borrow more dollars, or we try to reach an arrangement with the domestic bond holders. But this has implications. And I think I think it was unfortunate, in my opinion, that this news got ahead of whatever meeting the finance ministry or the Bank of Ghana was going to have with their stakeholders in the economy. Because if news leaks that there's going to be a restructure and it takes the market by surprise, then what you see is that the yields on Ghana's domestic debt climb even higher. By that I mean people require more and more interest in order to take the risk of buying government debt. And if you put the news out there that you are planning a restructure, then what will motivate any investor to buy government debt? Okay, so you are going to reduce the demand for the government debt on the domestic market. But if you do that, and then there's no external source of financing as well, then what are you doing? You are limiting yourself to financing only from the Bank of Ghana. Because let's say theoretically, banks, investors, investment firms, private investors, foreign investors say that, okay, I do not know what is going to happen. Maybe that I'm going to get 30% of the value of money that the government owes me is going to be written off. That is known as a haircut. Or instead of paying back in 5 years, they are going to say they are going to pay back in 10 years. That is an extension of a maturity. And so if that is done, why are you going to be motivated to buy government debt? You will not. You will keep your money in cash. But government needs this borrowing every week in the form of treasury bills. And if nobody is buying, and then they decide to rely on the Bank of Ghana for financing, then you are even going to worsen your inflation rate. You are going to worsen the exchange rate, and then you are making it even more difficult to repay the debt in the future. So it was unfortunate that the news got ahead of the market, and I think it's very important right now for the ministry, the central bank, and all stakeholders to sit down and agree on a plan that this is what we want to do. We are going to either use haircuts or maturity extensions. These people may be excluded, or everybody is going to be included. And this is what we are going to do to make sure that the repercussions on the financial stability of the whole system will be limited. And so I think with the IMF in town, it is crucial that key stakeholders are part of this meeting. Because, Godfred, pension funds, mutual funds, these are all funds who by law, okay, are limited from other types of investments. So many of them are heavily loaded on government debt. And if I should give you anecdotal data, if you should look at what is happening in the mutual fund market, since the start of the year, there has been huge level of withdrawals. So many people are trying to get their money out of mutual funds because
it's not anecdotal. I've been made aware of this situation in the past month or so.
Right. And these mutual funds are heavily invested in government debt because if you look at their regulations, it kind of tilts them towards government debt as a safe investment so that you do not have the situation where, they go gamble with people's monies. And if these people are heavily invested in government debt and their investors are trying to pull out their money and nobody else is trying to get into government debt, then who is going to finance these withdrawals that the customers are making? Okay, we may be headed back to a situation where we will go to the liquidity crisis we faced just barely 4 years ago. But this time it wouldn't be because of private investments, it will be a public investment. And so we cannot have surprises for the markets. We cannot have uncertainty for the market in this time. We need clear communication. We need consultations, extensive consultations. All the stakeholders must be on board, know exactly what the plan of the government or the central bank is with respect to restructuring so that they can prepare to prevent any kind of bad effect on financial stability. And then my final point will be, if you are going to restructure domestic debt, then it becomes essential that you must also restructure external debt. Why do I say this? It's a matter of fairness. We have foreign investors who are invested in Ghana's domestic debt. So we have people who have converted their US dollars to Ghana cedis in order to partake in domestic investment. Now let's say you are going to give them a haircut, but then the foreign investors who decided to only buy your Euro bonds, they are not going to be subject to a haircut. Where is the fairness in that situation? And then you look at your domestic investors who, when external investors pulled out, okay, they refused to give you any financing for 2022. The domestic market stayed with you and kept oversubscribing even to treasury bills week in and week out. Now these investors are going to be punished, while those who did not lend you any money are going to have their full funds paid. I mean, this is theoretical. So if you do domestic restructuring, you must endeavor to do some sort of external restructuring as well.
Thank you for your thoughts, Jerome. And we'll essentially come down to the big question of what does this mean for local investors. He's explained this in some regard. But let me just add this whilst we try to expand the conversation, and then I will bring in Tome, I'll bring in Alfred Thompson, he's a banker, Professor Lord Mensah is with us, as is Franklin Kujo. But whilst this conversation, this news was making headlines, then Fitch also decided to enter the fray yesterday and downgraded Ghana to CC from triple C. The way these things work out, you know, for a lot of people are like, okay, how is the double C worse than the triple C? You know, but it says Fitch typically does not assign outlooks to issuers with a rating of triple C or below. And then this is the reasoning. It says key ratings drivers. 1, increased probability of debt restructuring. The downgrade reflects the increased likelihood that Ghana will pursue a debt restructuring, given mounting financing stress with surging interest costs on domestic debt and a prolonged lack of access to Eurobond markets. There is a high likelihood that the IMF support program currently being negotiated will require some form of debt treatment due to the climbing interest costs and structurally low revenue as a percentage of GDP. We believe this will be in the form of a debt exchange and will qualify as a distressed debt exchange under our criteria. The government has not confirmed or denied press reports that Ghana is preparing to negotiate a restructuring. Interest costs on external debt are lower than for domestic debt, and near-term external debt amortizations appear manageable. However, we believe there could be an incentive to spread a debt restructuring burden across domestic and external creditors, and therefore do not have a strong basis to differentiate between foreign and local currency ratings at this time. Then they talk about high debt service and financing constraint. Interest costs reached 47.5% of revenue in 2021 and 54% in the first half of 2022. Interest payments on domestic debt comprise around 75% of total interest costs. This reflects high yields on domestic debt, which have climbed following a 34% year-on-year spike in inflation as at August 2022 and monetary tightening, with the Bank of Ghana hiking its policy rate to 22% from 14% in February. Yields on the 91-day Treasury bill reached 27% in August, up from 12% in August 2021, and 10-year yields have spiked to above 35% in September, from around 20% in the first quarter 2022. And then talk about limited access to external financing. We expect external financing access to stay limited until at least an IMF program is agreed, as Ghana is likely to remain locked out of Eurobond markets, which had been the country's regular source of external financing. The government obtained a $750 million term loan from African Export-Import Bank and $250 million in syndicated loans from global commercial banks. It can also use its sinking fund. We estimate Ghana faces around $3 billion of external debt service costs in 2023, including amortization and interest. Continued reserve pressure. We expect persistent downward reserve pressure in the absence of an IMF program. Official reserve assets fell to $7.3 billion in June from $9.8 billion in 2021, and gross international reserves, excluding oil funds and encumbered assets, totaled $7.1 billion in March, the latest figures available. The exchange rate has weakened by 40% year to date against the US dollar, reaching 10 Ghana cedis to $1 in September, potentially made worse by the drop in non-resident investment in local currency debt. Non-resident holdings were 23 billion Ghana cedis at end August, or 4% of Fitch forecast 2022 GDP. IMF program pending. The government reversed its long-standing position against seeking IMF support in July 2022, and we believe a deal with the IMF is likely within the next 6 months. Ghana has indicated it could request between $2 and $3 billion, and the program could unlock budget support from official lenders. However, we believe a restructuring will be deemed necessary, with local currency debt treatment potentially included prior to IMF approval, as the IMF is unable to provide financing where it assesses a country's debt to be unsustainable. The most recent IMF debt sustainability analysis conducted in 2021 found Ghana at a high risk of debt distress and vulnerable to shock to market access and high debt servicing costs. Interest costs have risen substantially since then. Limited space for fiscal consolidation. We expect high interest costs and low revenue to impede fiscal consolidation. The medium-term fiscal framework in the 2022 budget envisaged narrowing the deficit to below the 5% of GDP ceiling by 2024, based on the expiry of pandemic-related expenditure and higher domestic revenue driven by new taxes, including an electronic transaction levy. However, implementation delays led to lower revenue and a larger nominal deficit in the first half of 2022 relative to budget forecasts. The government's slim majority in parliament could frustrate attempts to raise tax rates or implement new taxes. Then talks about partially guaranteed note could be excluded. It says, we affirmed the ratings on Ghana's partially guaranteed note backed by the World Bank's International Development Association, as the note may be excluded from a debt restructuring even if other Eurobonds are included. Then goes on to talk about rating sensitivities, factors that could individually or collectively lead to positive ratings, action, and upgrade. I'll go through all those when we return from our break. The Big Issue will be right back.
This week on Dressed for Morning.
You really don't know a thing about business.
Well, then explain it to me.
My dad is on a business trip, but we don't know when he's going to be back home.
Thank you.
It's very difficult to prevent the press from finding out.
We really need to find out how they're going to handle things now. Both of you calm down. We're going to get through this together.
Dressed for Morning. Dressed for Morning, showing every Saturday at 9 p.m. with a repeat on Sunday at 5 p.m. only on Citi TV. Your weekends will never be the same.
Who brought this Kujubisi? He fell from the sky.
Are you the new worker?
Yes, madam.
You've already met your new colleague, have you? This is Kwame.
You can also call me KK.
Now there will be less gossiping.
Ifya, kindly get a pair of scissors and assist.
You don't have to. I have my receipts.
Hey, I wonder if she's married.
Hey, no. She's a teaching assistant at the University of Ghana. She can bring her own lecture hall from her house to the school.
Hey, you come on. Like that.
I have boxes. Support this for me. You.
Welcome back to the big issue on Citi TV and also on Citi 97.3 FM. My name is Godfred Akotoboafo. We are going through government's attempt to rescue the economy, and this week we've seen some elements, or we've been told about some elements of the rescue plan, which includes talks with domestic bond holders. Will happen soon, we are told, as the government continues its conversation with the IMF. Also hit this week by Fitch, who downgraded us a bit more to CC. I have read the first part of that just to give you an indication of what they were thinking, because some of it fed into the conversation we're having about the restructuring of local currency debt as part of the conversation and what it means for investors. Also trying to understand how we even got here in the first place for the government to consider this line of action. The government is trying to do a lot of things at the same time in order to buy itself some space. We spoke in the first part about what the BOG has been trying to do to sanitize the black market. My panelists agree almost unanimously that it requires a bit more deeper thought than just enforcing the law, which is true. The law does need to be enforced. So I'm having this conversation with Jerome Kuse. You heard him initially. Tomemi here is also here. Professor Lord Mensah, Alfred Thompson, and then Franklin Kujo is also with us. Alfred, I'll come to you in a sec. Let me just hear from Professor Lord Mensah, and then I'll come to Tome, and then I'll come to Alfred on the matter. Professor Lord Mensah, your thoughts. Jerome has explained what he feels the pros and cons are of this conversation, and also try to explain for our listeners how Ghana's debt situation works, basically how we even borrow. Your thoughts on this conversation with the news of a possible conversation with domestic bond holders?
Yeah, I mean, this restructuring normally happens, and if a country is about to default, there's a room for that kind of restructuring. So it's a process. And, you know, restructuring the domestic market, it has its own, repercussions. Let me give myself as an example. Having, an investment in a 5-year government, bond. For this information to come out, I quickly had to, recall, and I care less about the possible reduction in interest rate and the principal that I will receive, and then brought the my investment to short term. What I'm driving at is that once such an information comes out, it has its own way of reducing the investor appetite for long-term investment. Now, clearly, you understand our debt composition. I know, it's going to be part of the IMF, conditionalities to have a way that this country can renegotiate some of its debt. But then we should, we shouldn't be overly concentrated so much in the domestic market, because we should treat the domestic market as a last, kind of a lender of a last resort, because the international market in itself has been shut on us anyway, until we show sign of improvement, show sign of our ability to pay. We're not going to have access to that market. So can you imagine having this debt restructuring, which will bring about possibility of, principal haircuts, possibility of interest cuts and all those? The confidence that it will have in our economy. Government is going to struggle to raise money going forward, because, if the international market is shut on you, you should have other means of borrowing. And it will go a long way to even affect, short-term instruments like treasury bills and all those, the confidence in government treasury bills. That makes me, sometimes wonder whether government instruments are indeed risk-free, as we've been, instruments like treasury bills are indeed risk-free. And you wonder what we've been teaching as a lecturer all these years, whether we can still keep on, saying that government, treasury bills are more or less risk-free. We cannot say that it is risk-free because the dynamics have changed. And clearly, it tells you that if you were to invest somewhere in January, which your treasury bill rate was around 14%, and now treasury bill rate is hovering around 27, 26%. Well, there's a huge difference. If you tied your funds for 1 year, it tells you that for now you are losing, unless maybe you decide to, call in, this investment that you've done and then reinvest at the new market rate, which will, of course, come with certain punishment by, getting interest reduction. So effectively, I'm very sure that government is definitely going to do, this debt restructuring and possibly reprofiling of debt, possible short-term debt going long-term. And so effectively, we should be careful how we go about it, because the last thing I would do if it comes to restructuring, to go into a restructuring where the investor confidence in the domestic market will be reduced completely. Then, if we don't take care, we'll crash this economy to ground zero, because government lender of last resort is the domestic market. You realize in our last budget, somewhere, that's the November budget, immediately the government foresaw that the domestic market will not be appealing for us anymore. He had to, tilt the financing strategy of government, budget, concentrate more on the domestic financing. So that tells you that whatever restructuring we're going to do, if it turns out to have a serious impact on our investor confidence in this country, if we don't take care, we'll be in trouble. So I would say that government should also look outside, the external, debt, and find a way to also, restructure the external debt. In fact, Fitch report indicated that we don't have much problem with external debt because the cost of borrowing is lower. For me, I find that statement not to be true, because if you factor in, exchange rate, you will come to understand that the external, debt will be weighing us more than the domestic debt. So effectively, we need to be clear and be quite, careful how we go about this, restructuring. Just having the information out there alone as, imminent debt restructuring about to come up, it has a way of building up into the market as far as government bills are concerned, the demand and supply of government bills. So if you go to the banking hall now and do a survey, how for the past few days, investors have, started calling their investment and bringing it to short term, it tells the market that having this information out there, the future is not good. So as a result of that, bring your investment to the immediate term, which you can easily have access to it within the shortest possible time. So for me, yes, restructuring is about to happen. There's no way we can go about, rescuing the debt situation we find ourselves in without, restructuring the debt. But then we should be careful how we go about it, so that it does not, throw away the little investor confidence that is left for the Ghanaian economy.
Thank you, Prof. Let me come to Tomo. Tomo, you've been chomping at the bit for some time. Go on.
First of all, let's get something very clear. The domestic debt, the one held by foreigners, is by far the most expensive debt that Ghana has been taking. Here we go.
Explain.
Let me explain. Let's take, say, 5-year bonds, all right? Which, before this whole crisis came about, we were paying about 19%. Now, the reason why we pay such large amounts is to take care of the foreign exchange risk of the foreigners. The foreigners do that. Any cedi depreciation will affect them because they are bringing their dollars, changing to cedis to invest, and they are taking dollars out. Now, we now give them 19%. apart from in 2019, city depreciation really has reduced. Let's face it. Even in election year 2020, what was the depreciation? 3.4%. Now take even 4% out of 19% coupon rate. What is left? 15%. They're making dollar returns of 15%. Your Eurobonds, how much are you paying the Eurobond people? 8%. The foreign debt, the domestic debt, which were being subscribed to by foreigners, was twice as expensive as the Eurobond debt we've been taking. What we have to do is just remove the city depreciation from the coupon rate. All that left is the returns in dollar terms that these guys were getting per annum, about 15%. Meanwhile, you are doing Eurobond at what? 8. Do you understand what I'm saying? And now because of that, now even the Ghanaian domestic investors were able to benefit, like banks and co were able to benefit because you have put the rate that high from the foreigners. You have to apply the same rate to local investors as well. Now you have inflation until before the beginning of this year. You had single-digit inflation, all right, but you're paying 19% per annum on your medium-term bonds when your inflation rate is below 10%. You see the spread they're making. Yeah. Now these foreigners, the foreigners are what pisses me off was the foreigners were coming in at that time that they were making about 15% dollar returns in Ghana. How much could they make in America? 1.75%. Come on. We were cleaned out. No, we were totally cleaned out.
Do you not know we're being cleaned out?
Of course,
we allowed it.
I've said it. Let me tell you why they were able to do it. Let me tell you why we were able to do it. Government, since the Kufa administration, every single government in this country has been part of a pyramid scheme. Listen, we take dollars for these guys and change it to cedis. A large part of it is even spent on consumption. We don't care about the fact that we are not, even though we are paying people 15% real dollar terms per annum, which no country in the world, no other country in the world does that. Even despite that, how much of that money we're taking went into trying to increase our foreign exchange earnings in order to pay? None of it. Look at our road shows. We go and tell the white man that, oh, don't worry, we're going to open more oil fields, we're going to open more gold mines. That's how we'll get the Forex to pay you. Go and check the road shows. Right from Kufuor's time. Look, I've said this on this program before. We were here. I said it. Check our Eurobond issues. The first one was in 2007. It came about 3 months after we discovered Jubilee. Yeah. The second one was in 2013, after I discovered commerciality for 10 oil cluster. The third one, we now had Janeme. That was when now we stopped taking 1 million per annum from the Eurobond market and started taking 3 million per annum for this. They coincide, yet yeah, exactly. That's the reason why it was every time we discover a new source of income, we rush to the Eurobond market and go and tell the white men that, hey, look, we have some more dollars coming. You see how it's expanding. Give us more money. That is what has been happening. It's as simple as that. Now, here we go. Now, so you have domestic, you have the foreigners who invest in city loans, cleaned us out. You have the domestic investors like the banks and co, and you and I who buy treasury bills. This will be cleaned out. The reason we've been able to do it is that government has become addicted to the dollars that comes in. What government has been doing, what I say is like a pyramid scheme is this. A pyramid scheme is based on you take money from somebody. You're not concerned about generating money to pay on top. You're relying on more people bringing in their deposits. Am I right? Is that how a pyramid scheme works? The same thing is what Ghana has done. What Ghana has done is that we've been taking money at astronomical real rates with the mind that other foreign investors will keep on bringing in their money. And we like from Peter to pay Paul. A lot of the Peters, lots of the Pauls even were rolling over because they were getting what 1.2. They were getting about 7 times as much as they were getting their home market in dollar terms from Ghana. So they will keep rolling over. And if anybody decided even to pull out, there will be somebody else willing to do it. Look at the Ghana fixed income market. Go and check the trading volumes. How they suddenly jumped up. Because everybody wanted to get into Ghana. And what happens that when you take a 5-year bond, you know at the back of your mind, okay, you're making 15% in return, but you know that somewhere along the line, this pyramid is going to collapse. So what you do is when you take it for a couple of years, then you sell to somebody else. That is what has been happening. It's as simple as that. That is why the Forex, the trading volumes on Ghana fixed income market suddenly shot up several folds. And which of course has also killed the equity market. Anyway, that's an aside. So that is the situation that Ghana has found itself in. We were just taking money. The calculation that we said was more oil fields, more this, that. But now the problem is this: when was the last oil fields? When was the last time we had an oil field come on stream? The Afina one, that's I think Spring. Is it Afina is it Springfield or?
That's the one that's in court, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the Springfield one, right? Now we know what has happened there. The Peckham Fields, Aka, because of financial constraints. You see what has happened there. We've not been able to put anyone. Even the Hafu Nuts gold mine, because of land speculators, they will not be able to start developing it. We are expecting some more Cardinal Resources and Azuma holding gold mines in the two upper region, upper east, upper west. But because of things going on in the mining industry and the Ghana economy, those ones have been put on hold. So we are not getting the increases in Forex we were getting right from when we started going to Eurobond market, which coincided with new discoveries or new mines coming on stream. So now our liabilities keep rising where the assets have been in one place. So now, and you see, we should have learned our lesson in 2019. Remember what happened in 2019? When we exited the IMF program, and the IMF didn't want us to leave because they saw what was coming. To be honest, to be fair, they saw what was coming. And they started using some subtle arm twisting by, saying that, look, effectively that Ghana would not be able to handle its own affairs, especially with the election year coming. And people started pulling out of the domestic bondholders. The foreigners who are investing in Citi bonds, all of them started pulling out. The Citi depreciated from January to middle of March. There was a hemorrhage on Forex. Just the way they have been doing this year, they started pulling out then. But then we still had access to the markets, international markets. What did we do? We just went and borrowed 3 million from the Eurobond market and threw it on the market, threw some into reserves, and that solved the problem. But that should have been a warning to us that this thing cannot continue forever. No pyramid scheme can continue forever. Eventually, we'll turn around and bite you on the nose. That was a warning. We refused to heed it. We just went and borrowed more dollars and threw at the issue. And the foreigners and don't think they were stupid. They will see what was happening, but it was like, when this African country is playing dumb, so let's benefit from it. So they now kept quiet. It's okay, fine. We'll keep the money there. You've got to go and borrow more money. For now, we are good. And they kept on fleecing us. That is what has happened. I know it sounds hard, but it is a simple truth. It is the simple truth. We've been borrowing at astronomical terms in terms of dollars. Now you're now surprised that our debts, our debt that's another thing. I've said on this program, and I've said it on Point of View on Bernard's program. I've said it over and over again that measuring debt, public debt, as a proportion of GDP is the most daftest, most stupid thing you can ever think of in practical terms. Godfrey, you're a salary earner. Now, if you go to your bank for a salary loan, when you are going to take money and you are deciding how much you want to borrow, what will you calculate? Will you calculate the worth of the things you have in your house, which is now your personal GDP, or will you simply calculate your salary, your income, in determining how much you can afford to be paying? It's not salary. So why on earth are we calculating public debt as a portion of GDP? Look, America and co debt, those ratios are over 100%. But go and check how much they have to pay out of their revenues to service those debts. About 27%, 37%. That is what we should. That's what I said it here. That's what we should be looking at. That's what I hate having to now say I told you so. I hate having to say it.
Well, you've said it.
I've said it. One, that we were operating a pyramid scheme, a state pyramid scheme. Two, that we were using the wrong measure of the debt. And I said I've been saying it for the past 2-3 years. Nobody listened. Now here we are.
So Thomas has his.
Sorry, that's why I'm so angry. I've been saying this thing.
Calm down.
Of course, and I go.
It's
imports. Who thought? I mean, who's going to listen?
You're as Ghanaian as the rest of us.
No, I mean, I'm so brief there. Go. I mean, but who am I? Just a journalist. What do I know? After all, they are doctors and professors in the Ministry of Finance and Bank of Ghana.
For me. Let me talk to Alfred Thompson. He's spent several years in the banking industry. What will domestic bondholders be thinking after hearing this?
Good morning.
Good morning, Alfred.
And sorry I was quite late. They gave me 10 o'clock. Apparently you started at 9.
Yeah, so I missed you for now.
Yeah. So, but I believe that most people have spoken, and definitely they've spoken about what is going on. I see my brother here is drawing and shaping and getting angry and using words that are unusable, the pyramid scheme and things. I don't think it's okay.
No, when I see I don't mean that it was meant as a pyramid scheme, but it was operating on the same principle.
Yeah, we are
even though we do not mean to dupe anybody.
Okay. No, it's not everyone who understands it. It's not everyone who understands it. You see, whether you like it or not, when you're in debt and you are going to any financial institution to seek for funding, they'll first of all tell you that, listen, what you have there, how can we structure it in such a way that when you add this on, it's not going to affect your payments and your everything. So as for restructuring of the domestic debts and even the foreign debts, it's an automatic thing that is going to happen.
It's okay.
Whether we like it or not. They would need to look at how we're going to pay back, because you can't just keep on adding debt to debts and not having a payment plan. You look at one, your revenue. And seriously speaking, our payment of the debt is mainly generated from our revenues, our taxes and other little things incentives that we add on. So when you look at our revenue, the revenue generation as against the debts that we have, definitely you will be a little bit scared that, listen, is this feasible? Can they pay? Anybody who is a lender or will give you money will tell you straight away that, oh, you cannot pay. They'll put it that way. So getting this information, it's not surprising, and we should expect it. And coming from the Fitch and other people, you should know that definitely they would write it that way. However, we should look at ourselves and ask ourselves that, looking at our debt structure, how are we going to work around it in such a way that definitely we can pay and come out of this situation? I don't know whether the other people spoke about what England has done. You know, they've increased their interest rates by 0.5% and the US by 0.75%. And what effect does it have on definitely our local debts or what he said earlier on, the foreign components that come in to buy the local debts will now start moving their money because they're going to get a better rate out there. They are going to get high interest. They are using it to mop, or they are saying that, okay, we are using it to reduce inflation. But however, it's going to affect us in one way or another. We should expect all these little skirmishes or gimmicks going on. And these are things that we have to sit down and actually look at and see how we're going to manage it. Because it means that you have to now look for money to pay off, especially those who brought in the foreign currency to invest on your local markets. How can we manage that? And these are things you have to sit down with the IMF to fashion out. Definitely we'll put our dealings on the table and tell them that, listen, we're going to do A, B, C, D, E, F. Yes, you can cut down on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How are you going to raise revenue? Because you can't now, what is going to happen is that your debt is now going to take a chunk of your revenue or your budget that you are putting across. And even if you are not careful, your salaries will be a problem because your debt is going to overtake your salary payments and everything. And you have to sit down and fashion out how you're going to work around it. As a banker, they will always tell you that, listen, we can only give what you can pay back.
40%. That's the standard for banks.
Yeah, it is.
But now Ghana is at 54. So why would we even be lending?
It's not. You see, don't look at only Ghana. Look at it as an economic crunch that has gone on, whether we like it or not. The coming in of all these, I don't want to use the international situations like the COVID and the Russia-Ukraine war, but it's part of the problem we are facing. Because whatever happens outside affects us. Whatever, and as I gave you this example of the British increasing their interest rates by 0.05% and US by 0.75%, it's definitely going to affect our markets. Because people will say that, okay, it's now safer to go on the US market where they've hiked their interest rates up a little bit than what you are going to give me. Because now it's scary whether, and as they put it, can you pay or you can't pay. So if I get a little bit here that I can quickly turn around and then come back to your market when your market is okay, then definitely you'd want to play around it. And financial people always want to play around figures and their rates and everything. Just relax. I know your temper is going. I think you have to give me some tea to cool it down.
Like that.
No, but I just want us to take responsibility. But guys, look, we keep complaining about Russia-Ukraine war. We keep talking about COVID as the cause of our problems. But when we keep listing this, when we call it, nobody's talking about the Auditor General's report, what is contained in there as part of our problems.
Okay.
I even went on Asaze last week and they were saying it was the Queen of England who caused it with the Commonwealth by putting us in the Commonwealth. I mean, we just want to take responsibility.
It's okay. It hasn't been said on this platform. It's okay. Allow the person.
Somebody on Asaze FM.
Let Alfred speak.
So coming back to the situation, yes, I mean, locally, you have to look at how you can also plug your holes. And these are part of the conditions that you will sit down with the IMF and put it in. He's talked about the Auditor General's report. Forgetting that, you see, when you study the reports very well, most of the places that last year there were a lot of loopholes were plugged, and it's changed the whole narration. However, there were new places that were now coming in. So it means that, you close your eyes here, but you open your eyes here to stop this place while someone is also. We need to get a holistic approach in dealing with this report, and also where people need to be punished for repeating the same sins. Because sometimes when they are not punished, it also creates the room for people to say, okay, just refund. If I can take money and I can go and invest and you tell me to just refund, at the end of the day, I can also play around it.
Come on, let him speak.
Just point of clarification.
Yes.
This thing, when I see the General's report, I'm not blaming any government too, because most of these people who were indicted they are civil servants, not politicians.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what he's also
the
saying.
money is not coming into
your
the
point is
main
not lost
chest.
on him, don't worry.
The main chest for government to use.
Please,
and that is what I'm saying, that we need to also find ways of plugging those holes.
All the issues I'm talking about, I don't blame any particular government because they've all been complicit.
You don't need to clarify it, don't worry. Just go. People understand what you said.
So at the end of it all, what we should look at is how we can all get together in solving this situation. How we can all come together and say that, listen, let's have some cuts here and there. Let's try and increase revenue. Let's try and make sure that whatever we're borrowing, we can manage it in such a way that it will transform into finished goods. And try and also work on our natural resources. Let's not look at just cocoa and gold and say that, listen, we are using. We need to look at other things that we can quickly, the bauxite, the manganese that we are looking at, all these things, transform it quickly where we can turn it into finished products and start using some to pay off some of these outstanding or long debts that have been there since time immemorial. And we should put it on record. Debts have always been there. It didn't start today. It didn't start yesterday. It started way back. And until we start moving into another scheme, I'm not sure that would come to an end of this program. But we'll always go back to IMF. And they are always using, whether you like it or not, any bank who is there, I mean, what are banks there for? To make money, to convince you to come and take from them and make money out of you. So definitely, once you are going to them, they'll look for ways and means of also making sure that you come back and come and borrow more.
But let me ask you this. You've run banks. If these days you don't, but you used to. If you were running a bank and the government intimated this conversation with you, what would you be telling the government, and what would you be telling
the
people your investors as well?
I started the scenario from the banking industry, how we operate, and how when someone who owes you is coming for more money, you would have to look at restructuring it. And that's why I told you that definitely the restructuring is something that is the first point.
But this particular restructuring might end up affecting your customers.
You see, they are not going to
Won't that affect you directly?
They are not going to do restructuring that would hurt you. You have to look at the restructuring that can help you maneuver short term, long term, operate within a system where you'll be able to pay. You can't do a restructuring and hurt the person, your customer or your person who you are giving the money to. Then it means what you are doing is that you want to shut the country down. It can happen. So you have to look at it in a holistic approach, where when you give the person the money, you have to either increase the number of years that he already has. Because, okay, I'm going to, instead of giving you 1 billion, I'll give you 3 billion. Use 2 billion to pay off some of these debts, so you have the room to operate. You have to give the person the breathing space. Otherwise, why are you giving the person the money?
Does the government currently look like it's in a position where it can restructure based on the scenario that you've described for customers to also understand and not be affected?
Definitely when you are going to IMF, you have to put all this together. You have to put all this together. You have to show them your ability to pay is the most important thing any bank or any institution wants. It's not your ability to sell the country or sell this or sell that, but to pay your debts. Whatever you are going to do, however you are going to do it, show me how you are going to make income to pay your debts. And that is the most important thing. And any person you are going to borrow money from, that is the first thing they want to see, how you can pay.
The reason why I'm asking this is based on Lord's situation, for instance, where he said as soon as he heard the news, he called his investors at the bank and said, look, let's move from point A to point B.
Sometimes the panic situation becomes too much, where,
well, considering the state of the economy, you can't help it.
Which economy is not under threat now? Which economy? Why do you think US are increasing their interest rates? Why do you think British is doing the same? Why do you think other countries are doing the same? Everybody is trying to...
Let's remember that our debt to GDP ratio is 78%. The average for developing countries...
I thought you said we should use debt to GDP, and you are still using it. Don't use it. You are the same person saying that don't use it, and now you are using the same thing.
Point out that our situation is worse than our peers.
We've been in dire situations before, haven't we? But we've come out of it. Yeah. It's a gradual thing.
Oh, we'll come out of this one.
We'll come out of it. It's just a space of time. Let us not panic. You see, in the haste of panicking and trying to say, if you don't do this, we'll do this. If you don't do that, this is what is going to happen. If you are not careful, you become so confused that you don't put the things in the right places. Let us take your time, relax. As a financial person, the first thing you do is to let your customer know that, listen, relax. Whatever we are going to do is going to be in the best interest of Ghana. Nobody wants to. I don't see any finance minister or any finance ministry coming into office and say that I want to live with a bad name. Everybody wants to set a record. And the record is to change from the bad situation to a good situation. That is what makes you the strong person. That is what makes your name. So whatever the government is going to do at this point in time is to serve the interest of Ghana. So if a president has been able to come and tell you that, listen, at the moment, what I've done, what I've put in place, I want to make sure that based on my record, I'm going to win the next elections. You should know that he's not going to put a record in your financial or your economic situation where he cannot use that as a base to go and fight for a winning of a next election. You get what I'm saying? I'm putting the political aspect
certainly
for you to understand where I'm coming from. So definitely, whatever we are going to put in place is to make sure that the country will stand or come back on its right footing. The setting up of this integrated aluminium, steel, and bauxite, and all these things, all those policies that we are putting together is to make the country stronger. We have all the resources that we can use at our disposal.
But we need money.
You need money. And that is why...
That particular one requires a lot of money. Money we don't have.
That is why when you're going to... And the truth is that, with all these oil fields, over 70% is going out. I mean, the money that was invested in is not money that we want to borrow to use it. That is why we are not getting the chunk of the funding or the interest or the profits that we should get. And that is the basic problem that we have. And don't forget that someone who has emancipated you from mental slavery will definitely go the economic side to see how he can also milk from you. The rich will also always want to milk from you. So we have to be strategic about it. We have to sit down and plan that, listen, even though we are going to let go of this, how can we also make sure that based on ABC, we can also gain this and transform our country into a next level? Because we can rock shoulders. We can rock shoulders with all the high and mighty. I always say that when you look at Ghana and you look at even Britain hasn't got any resources to show. The only thing they have is a monarch. And that is how they are making their money. So why can't we also sit down and plan and look at it well and make sure that we also make money out of everything we are doing?
I will tell you.
No, this is just a rhetorical.
I can tell you why.
I don't want you to. I don't want you to move into that direction. We'll change the whole discussion.
So I have to talk to Franklin after he's done.
So coming back to the issue, I would say that let us not panic. Let us take our time. Let us relax. The ministry are going to come out with the details of whatever they are going to do, even if it's restructuring locally or internationally on the international market, and with all the debts that we've taken, is going to be in the interest of Ghana. And we want to see us moving from short term, moving at least getting the breathing space to work around what we are doing. And to tell you the truth, we had, when at the beginning of this year, we were telling people that, listen, the e-levy that you are looking at was a way of getting some revenue into the system. Let us quickly work on that to start at least domestically instead of always borrowing and things. And people were saying, oh, the e-levy is to milk you, is to do this. At the end of the day, they were hurting the country. They thought they were hurting the government, but they were hurting the country. And it's part of the reasons why we are in the situation now. You see, when you have an opposition that is not looking at the country as a whole, but is looking at situations where let us make the government unpopular so we come back to power, we are hitting the country. And these are the things we should point out.
That's what I did the 1 minute for.
These are the things we have to point out and make sure that it doesn't happen. People who don't have the welfare of the country at heart, people who are looking at their personal interest. Why do I want rain or shine to come back to power? I keep on saying that, listen, the opposition can do a very good job by, uniting with this government for everybody to see that I am helping this country move from what it is in now, instead of always criticizing it, instead of always trying to bring it down.
They disagree. They don't have to agree with everything.
No, I'm not saying that.
That their summit is the region. What happened? You guys also refused to go.
At that time, listen. At that time, the second phase, you get what I'm saying. At that time, before they went for that thing,
I don't want to turn this conversation into that kind of conversation right now.
We had written every point. We had written every point that they needed. We said we don't need to be there. These are the points that we have already written. So why do we have to be there? So coming back to it, let's even assume that that was a mistake on our part. Should we continue going that tangent? We don't have to. We have to look at the interest of this country. And the first and most important interest is to make sure that economically, financially, we have become a powerful force. And we need everybody to bring their brains together. Let us work together. Let's stop the criticizing. Because whatever we are doing today, whatever critics we are going to put in today, is going to affect our children tomorrow.
Point well made, Alfred, but we'll still criticize.
Franklin criticize in a positive direction.
Franklin Kujo is president of Imani Africa, and then I'll wrap up this side of the conversation. Franklin, I'm sure you've heard all the different aspects of this conversation from Jerome. I hope, Jerome, you're still with us. I'm not done with you. Toma, and then Prof. Lord Mens, and then Alfred as well.
Yes, I've heard. And good morning to everybody.
Morning.
Excellent points made so far. Let me just say that, look, this conversation is about restructuring, however important it is within the economic lexicon, must also be predicated upon the fact that governments have become quite irresponsible. And I think Toma was hinting at that as well. A question I ask myself is, why should I be asked to take a haircut when I'm not able to convince the government to be responsible enough in order to sloganeer itself into government? As in, sloganeering one district, one this, one village, one dam. You go and look at these investments and you are seeing that they are very poorly made. Essentially, the expenditure that we make on these investments have become so poor that I think the equation must be balanced by asking ourselves, the government now wants us to have a conversation, and that conversation must be had. And I think Parliament must be involved, because I don't think the government can just decide that, look, I'm in a bind, and so whereas this is economically sound, I'm going to take the decision. Of course, they can get the law passed and then change, allow us to either take a haircut on the principal or on the interest. But essentially, that conversation must be had. And I don't see representation of the Ghanaian interest in this conversation about the balanced equation of responsibility. Forget about all this talk about the international scheme or system being part of the reasons why we are where we are today. Yes, it's a fact, but by how much and by what percentage? My estimation is just about 30%, right? A chunk of the investments we make, and Thomas was giving you a historical account of all the bonds we've raised internationally. Go and look at what we've used those funds for. Absolutely mind-boggling, wasteful expenditure. And then you ask yourself, you get into a bind, and now you want us to have that conversation. Yes, we should have the conversation, but I'm afraid I increasingly I'm seeing the voices of dissent. I mean, positive voices of dissent not being taken into consideration at all when it comes to as it is the configuration of the way the government manages the economy. And by government, I mean successive government, by the way. So I'm a bit mortified. A question I keep asking is, how much revenue actually is enough? You know, we keep harping on this point that we are not raising enough revenue. Well, granted, yes, we may be doing below 15 or 17% per our peers. But the question is, if you compare this country to the other countries as well, that are probably doing a bit better on the revenue side, they're actually doing a bit better on the expenditure side as well. How much are we building our airports for? We built a runway in this country for almost $120-something million. When similar airports, that money could have built about 3 or 4 airports in Ethiopia. Look at how much we spend on our elections. We perfectly threw away perfectly working biometric systems, costing us almost $70 million to just procure new ones. We decided to employ the services of an entity that was to revenue assure us electronically, and up to date we don't have a single report as to why we are paying $1.5 million to that entity every month to assure revenues on the telcos that we haven't seen. Right? How much are we building our roads for? So look, I'm a bit mortified that I'm not too sure we are going to end this conversation about going to the IMF anytime soon. Yes, it's likely we'll go back there, and they are a bank, and of course they want to make profit. They also want to say that they check boxes here and there and ensure that Ghana was on the path of righteousness. I think the biggest mistake we made was to get off this IMF program much earlier in 2019, when clearly the promises we were going to make to stay on the path of good behavior was actually a fluke, you know. So I'm only just sounding what I suspect civil society actors are asking themselves and asking questions on behalf of everybody. Question: if we go into this pact that you want us to go together as government, and my good friend Alfred, I hear you, understand you. This is not about the grand politics, but the question must also be asked: what are you giving in return as government in order for us to make the sacrifices? And I've seen the plans or the ideas that the government wants to put up. And I asked one simple question. We've heard all of this before. What shows that would keep to making sure that our public sector reforms, public financial management systems are up to scratch? You know, I don't see that part of the bargain from the other side. all of this will pale away very soon when elections come. You start hearing again, building castles in the air, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do that. And quite frankly, it's becoming nauseating to hear, really. I mean, what didn't you promise that we were going to do with NAFCO trainees, for instance? That we're going to ship them off on the path of entrepreneurship. As we speak, not even 100. I don't even know whether 10 people have been shipped off. Of all the tens of thousands that were giving money or employed, have been shipped off successfully onto the path of commercial enterprise, and they are staying on their own. We promised the Ghana that we're going to get about 1 million barrels of oil a day. And one of the reasons why we decided to exit the program much earlier, we promised ourselves. What has happened with those oil fields? We promised ourselves a Sino-Hydro deal. What has happened in that regard? You know, so quite frankly, I'm a bit. I know we are in a bind, but I tell you, I kid you not. Let's have all this conversation nicely. Let's have this packed nicely, and we'll be back not long to our old ways of doing things. And I think that question must be asked. What does government look at when it comes to the optimal utilization of our resources? Don't tell me that you need resources ad infinitum. We should ask ourselves, what optimum level of development do we need? Look at the e-levy. I was quite angry that a section of the e-levy was supposed to be used in government setting up entrepreneurship project. Why would you continue doing these things Thomas likes to call scams or pyrams? What's the point in exacting the tax for the government to use as use in setting up employment scheme that virtually add no value to the economy, right? So, look, I think we've had very excellent points from Jerome, from my good friend Lord, Thomas Forever, and Alfred to some extent. Obviously, I don't know whether his corner is the reason why, but please.
It's okay. Let me just bring this up. Yeah, go on, Franklin. Finish up. You finish.
No, so look, I keep looking back, like everybody else. At least everybody here is almost 40 and above, and maybe I may probably be the youngest person. And I've looked at Ghana's development trajectory over the last 20-something years, and anyhow I look at it, anyhow I want to understand it, there's this big one single elephant, and by elephant I'm using it euphemistically here, as government, the Leviathan, that is continuously growing. You know, it's the biggest entity in the room. It keeps growing. It keeps has a voracious appetite, borrows a lot more, and then uses it virtually for insignificant returns. So I think we should also need that question. If we go into this pact, as my good friends are suggesting, yes, we should have a pact and understand whether Parliament will be involved in this haircut business, or even if not at all.
Somebody says your message that how are you getting a haircut when you have no hair?
Well, it's a good question, right? Isn't it a good question? When you have no hair, you probably have to squeeze it out of your nostrils and then get the haircut. Like quite clearly, I've become. I'm not an eternal pessimist, but I think optimism, baseless optimism in this time is unwise, and I think it's important that we drill down and ask ourselves this grand question. It's not about having a national development plan. I think we should start asking hard questions, and everybody should get involved. The next election, or even before the next election, what is it that the government wants to use the money for? And I'm giving you an example of this e-levy. I spoke to someone on the economic management team, and he was actually surprised that even the finance ministry was thinking about using a portion of the e-levy to do this so-called entrepreneurship business, right? I think we need this policy coherence, and I think that conversation must be had every now and then.
Okay.
And not necessarily wait for elections at all. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, just to wrap this up, somebody sent me a question. I need to ask this of Jerome and Thomas. This might be your area. Even perhaps Alfred to a certain extent. It's not a really lengthy conversation, but the fear. Jerome, are you still with me? Jerome.
Jerome has.
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh yeah. So yes, just listen to this from me. So there are those somebody's asking me, for instance, if with regards to this domestic conversation on restructuring, there is a concern for the local banks and their holdings, because he says, for instance, he gives a scenario. He says a meager 10% haircut on banks' holdings in Government of Ghana securities will require 6 banks to recapitalize to meet their CARs. 4 of those 6 banks are unlikely to survive. All that ensuing chaos will only result in 7 billion CD savings on our 400 billion debt stock. And those are his thoughts on some of the potential fallouts from that. Is that a consideration? Jerome, quickly, in 2 minutes, and Thomas as well. Alfred, you can also share your thoughts on this concern, because it's something that seems to be coming up. I've seen it in 4 messages, the potential impact on some of the banks. Jerome, let me start with you.
Okay. The financial stability implications are not to be underestimated. In fact, if you look at the situation of Zambia, what they have done is excluded domestic debt from restructuring because of the financial, the effects on the financial stability of the whole system. And being a country which has just recently got, in fact, I do not even think we have completed the
banking sector cleanup.
Banking sector cleanup, which is always reported on budget after budget, with its accompanying cost. We've not finished that process, and if we want to add this thing to it, the implications for the banks, the stability of the banks, the viability of the banks is going to be immense. If you have taken note, you realize that apart from downgrading Ghana's debt itself, Fitch downgraded 3 banks recently. And he spoke about the exposure of these banks to the domestic debt market. So, as to whether the banks will survive, as to whether they will be able to meet capital requirements after a haircut, it's a very significant question. It's an important question.
Okay.
And that is why we need the industry and government and the central bank, that's the regulator, and that's going to be the last source of financing. We need them working in tandem, okay? We cannot have information about restructuring going ahead of people in the industry. We need them working together. If they are going to have meetings with the IMF, they need to go together. Anything that has to do with restructuring, whether internal or external, everybody has to be on the same page, so that we can limit whatever financial impact is going to have. So, for example, if a bank is you are going to have a 10 to 20% haircut, and that's going to affect the capital adequacy ratio of specific banks, is the BOG going to step in, or is the BOG going to reduce the capital adequacy ratio for those banks specifically? And what impact does that have on regulation, on planning? Let's say you're a bank, you have not had any issue with capital even after the haircut. But then what does it tell you going forward? Are you going to be less invested in government securities because you do not know when it's going to affect your capital going forward? There's going to be uncertainty. There's no, what shall I say, we do not have a standard that is followed, and based on situations arising, the government can change regulations every now and then. Nobody wants to operate in an environment where the rules, the regulations are not certain, where you cannot project what's going to happen 3 to 5 years in the future. And so we need, the financial stability question is a legitimate question.
Okay.
We need a plan that will take industry's concerns into consideration, and we need everybody on the same page to reduce the impact as much as possible.
Thank you, Jerome.
Yeah.
You agree? If you agree, let's go for a break.
Well,
it's a concern.
It's a big concern, but one good thing is that at least, the last IMF program we had, remember the IMF now insisted that the Bank of Ghana should force the banks to extend their 1% general provisions to cover government securities as well. So at least the banks at least are making some level of provisions against this kind of situation. But it should be a lesson for the banks as well, because I was discussing with the former chief financial officer of EcoBank about a year ago, and they had decided that they were not going to rush into government securities like everybody else has done. If you go and look at their balance sheet, you see that what they did instead was they threw their money into like express loans. They've tried to diversify their loan portfolio, fragment it, but stick with their customers rather than the bank. Because he said it, look, the way he said it that time, the way we are going, eventually a haircut will have to come on government debt. He said he saw it coming. So, and I don't see why other banks could not see.
So
our trajectory towards debt or sustainability has been constant. It has been there since the day we reached peak completion point, and our debt to GDP ratio was below 30%.
My question is answered from me. Thank you, Alfred.
I agree with him. We need to look at it well and then see how we can.
If you were sitting in your CEO chair, you would be looking at your numbers heavily.
You have to. Okay. You have to look at it.
So
I
then
mean,
it's
part of it. You have to look at it.
Over to the guys at the Ministry of Finance and the government in this conversation on haircuts and maturities. I'm not taking a haircut yet. I'm just taking a break. The week should be right back. Welcome back to the big issue on Citi TV and also Citi 97.3 FM. I have a couple of messages coming through on the first part of the conversation. And let me just see. It says, Why are the locals always the ones to suffer in Ghana? Is it a curse to be born a Ghanaian? Why are foreign investments always cushioned in a very subtle way? Haven't you suffered enough? This person is not very happy to add his name. The Parkour from Secondary is asking, please, does this domestic debt restructuring include treasury bills? Yes, it does include. That's the main one. So it does include treasury bills. Says Kwesi Nsifo Befi in Chakwade also says good morning, and to the panelists. He's not happy with Ghanaian institutions, says they do not work. Says President Obama once came in and advised us to build strong institutions and not strong men. How does the bill just sit down unconcerned and allow unlicensed foreign exchange practitioners, most of whom are foreigners, to have access to these currencies, the detriment of the nation? We have been in this situation for far too long. Someone's also not very happy with NAFCO. About that, yes. James Karejewa says, why should we suffer from a decision we want the government against? Okay. This one also says, should we not really be concerned at how dollar-centered our economy is? If our economy was more city-driven, I think people would not really be bothered about going to buy dollars and sell in 6 months or whatever. This is James in Oyibi. Don Jacobson Sandema says the vice president should get on the track and rearrest the dollar again. This one says the best solution to the city depreciation is to integrate the black market to the formal market, but the challenge here is how to identify them. And he says he agrees with Professor Lord Mensah. Then Fine Boy Apia Dankwa says, why is it that our leaders are always adopting firefighting situations in solving our economic woes? Let us see some pragmatic and forward-looking solutions. He says he is already tired. Okay, so now let's move to the second part of the conversation, which deals with an ally. It's an ally. It's a legal instrument. But it's an ally that could change a lot of things, depending on where you stand, at least. For the EC, it's a matter of catching up. And for those who disagree, they are saying, well, they have concerns. So the NDC disagree with this particular ally. Now, let the NDC explain the ally itself and why they disagree. Now, the party is contending the EC's push to make the Ghana card the sole means of demonstrating one's eligibility for the registration and acquisition of a voter's ID card. Now, they are saying that the EC is attempting to eliminate the usage of the passport and the guarantee system, and that it is unconstitutional. So we'll listen to a bit of a report on this matter, and then when we come back, the NDC's Director of IT is here, Osei Kwame Griffiths. Mr. Griffiths, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Alfred Thompson is still here. He's flipped from the banking side to the political side in this phase of the conversation. And
I'm looking at it on the open
by the side, okay, I hear. And then the resident election specialist also on. Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa. He spent a lot of years looking at how we conduct our elections and the pros and cons of it. So let's listen to this report and then we'll be right back.
The National Democratic Congress, NDC, noted that the proposal of a new constitutional instrument, CI, for the Ghana card to be the only proof of identity for the registration of a voter's ID card will not augur well with Ghana's electoral system. The party believes the move will rather disenfranchise many, since a number of Ghanaians do not have the card. Speaking at a press conference, the national chairman of the NDC, Samuel Ofosu Ampofo, noted that the yet-to-be-introduced regulation is in contravention with the country's constitution.
Under the current regulation, i.e. Regulation CI 126, a person who qualifies to register as a voter may prove his or her identity by either presenting a valid Ghanaian passport, a national identity card, not national identity card issued by the National Identification Authority as proposed in this CI, or a registration identification form signed by 2 registered voters within the community. What the EC proposes to do with this new CI is to eliminate the 2 other sources of proof of identity, i.e. the Ghana passport and the guarantee system, leaving the Ghana card as the only means of identity. The second implication is that the regulation flies in the face of Article 42 of the Constitution, which states as follows: every citizen of Ghana, 18 years or above, and of sound mind, has the right to vote and is entitled to be registered as a voter for the purpose of public elections and referenda.
Mr. Ofosu Ampofo added that the NDC will use all available means to resist any attempt by the EC and NPP government to rig the 2024 elections.
We wish to caution the Electoral Commission to be mindful of its actions and inactions, since they have far-reaching implications for peace and security of our country. The conduct of the Electoral Commission reinforces the NDC's suspicion of collusion between the Commission and the New Patriotic Party to rig the 2024 elections. As a party with legitimate interest in the elections and given the high stakes of the 2024 elections, we are simply unwilling to allow any manipulation before, during, or after those elections, and we will demand the strictest standard in the processes leading up to the elections. Since the CI has not been formally laid before Parliament, we take this opportunity to call upon the EC to abandon the idea altogether. We wish to serve notice that we will use every lawful means to resist this latest effort to undermine the right of Ghanaians to vote and in the process skew the electoral system in favor of the MPP.
So that was the chairman of the NDC, Ofosu Ampofo, addressing the press, expressing their opposition to this idea that the EC has, that is trying to put into law to change this. And the EC has also explained its position on the matter. Well, they are saying they need to be able to verify the Ghana card is a more securitized document, mode of identification that they believe in, and so that is the way to go. So let me start from Osei Kwame on this. I hope I can call you Osei Kwame.
Oh, of course.
Yes, rather than Mr. Griffiths on this matter.
Yes.
To the ordinary person, what is wrong with the EC's plan? Ghana card, go. Okay, correct. Get voter ID card. What's the big deal?
Well, first of all, let me state that the issue of the Ghana card being the sole identity document is not the only issue we raised in the press statement. And also, the issue of the Ghana card being the sole document for registration to vote was passed in 2012 during an NDC, a time that NDC had majority in Parliament, and a time that the NDC occupied the Flagstaff House. So in principle, the NDC is not against the use of the Ghana card to register to vote. Now, what is different is that if you look at the LI 2111, Regulation 7, Sub-Regulation 1, Paragraph J, it says, and there's a reason why it was stated that way. It says mandatory, the title is mandatory use of the national identity card. It says a national identity card issued, and I want to emphasize, issued to the individual shall be used for the following transactions. And it goes ahead and say in paragraph J or sub-regulation 1, registration to vote. Now, this law was passed in 2012. The reason why it has not been enforced is because the Ghana card has not been issued to every Ghanaian in this country. And I take my source from Professor Atefa's presser, where it and other pressers that he has done, where he has indicated some very important statistics that can guide us in this conversation. That registrable population is about 20 million. In fact, he puts it at 19.9 million. They have registered over 17 million and they have issued cards to over 15.5 million. Now, what that means is that between registrable population, which is about 20 million, and those who have cards in their hands, there's a gap of about 4.5 million people. This gap are also people who are eligible to vote. And the Constitution only makes 3 conditions mandatory for somebody to vote in this country. 18 years and above, or signed man and a Ghanaian. So if they, through no fault of theirs, because don't forget that the NIA said they were going to give cards instantly. And by so doing, they amended their operational processes from going to the electoral area or the polling stations twice to once. Which, what that means is that prior to that, they would usually go to the electoral area, take data, come back to central database, deduplicate and print cards, go back to the electoral area and distribute the cards. Now they are saying because of instant issuance, there is no need to go there twice. So they've been there once, but the instant issuance did not work. We have not heard any plan from the NIA today to go back to the electoral area level and distribute cards that they have sitting on tables of offices in district centers, where people whose cards are sitting there don't even know that their cards are in district centers. So there's an issue. I mean, you can even look at the gap between registered and issued. That's about 1.5 million. These are people who presented themselves with the hope of going home with their cards and they haven't received any. And they have been to NIA several times and they have not received their cards. So it is important to note that whereas we are not against the issue of registering to vote with the NIA card, we believe that it is not sensible today to go and enact laws. It will be the same as the LI 2111. You understand? To pass laws today on infrastructure or policies or what have you, that does not exist at the moment. You understand? The other point that has to be raised is that NIA currently goes as far as to the district centers. They do not exist at the electoral area level. Take my hometown, for example, Aguna. If you are in Funufuni, that buying Mamchemsing area, you have to take a motor to Bupase, take a car to Buamwase, take another car to Aguna before you can get your NIA card, if it is there. Some have gone several times, and I have been to the constituency and gone down to that level. The complaints out there is that they have visited the NIA place several times, and they haven't even received the cards. So somebody has to pay about 10 to 15 cedis in, 10 to 15 cedis out to get his NIA card, because NIA has no intention of going back to the police station level. And then when he gets the card, EC brings another problem. And that takes me to the next issue of the Electoral Commission, the CI that they are trying to pass. Now, what they are saying is that now they are doing away with what they call the periodic registration. That is the limited registration, and they are going to do continuous registration. And this continuous registration would occur at the offices which of the EC district offices, so it's about 252. Let's grant it that it's 280. This is another problem. it brings back the same issue that I mentioned. This time, let me use Bole Bamboy as an example. If you, as a farmer in Bamboy, and he has to go as far as to Bole, which is 3 hours away from Bamboy, pay about 20 cedis to go to the EC office to go and register to vote. First of all, that farmer may have gone to NIA office several times to get his card. So you are making it impossible for people who don't have that kind of financial and time resources to be able to vote in this country. So you are disenfranchising Ghanaians in this country. That is the point we are making. And if you look at the presser that they put out, they says register at any time. That's a problem.
Why?
Because this is not the first time continuous registration. When you say this is the first time EC is embarking on this continuous registration, that's not true. Remember Tenadi versus Electoral Commission. The Supreme Court mandated the Electoral Commission to embark on registration, continuous registration. We set aside the last Friday or the first Friday of every month for that to happen. Because the registration exercise, political parties must supervise. All the issues they have raised that is a problem with the periodic registration. They say that the queues, forming of the queues and what have you will go away. The tensions and what have you will go away. Will minimize busing. How will that minimize busing? Every time there has been busing, it is one of the major political parties who have brought the issue up and stopped it. So how are you now going to do registration outside the view of these political parties? And then you expect that will minimize busing. And the funny thing to me, as a database person, is that the CI is even seeking to change the data that is given to political parties after the Ghanaians have registered.
How so?
They say that now they've omitted the date of birth. There was a condition that you provide name, age, date of birth.
Yes.
Date of birth was very helpful to us. You know, NDC, we are not into this underage registration.
If you say so.
No, yeah, seriously.
If you say so. Continue.
So one of the things that the date of birth does very well for us is that it is a key. Oh, every database of humans in this world, one primary key to that database, not perfect but quite efficient, is name added to the date of birth. So if you have lost your national ID card now and you go to the National Database Center and you say, I have lost my national ID card, I don't remember my PIN, but I need a new card. What is your date of birth? They input that against your name and that should pull your record. You see, so why are you giving, now limiting, because the new CI is seeking to do away with that, limiting the date of birth that you give to people, even residential address. They are omitting that. Residential address is very helpful in locating people who come from other constituencies to come and register. And the busing thing that they are talking about here, because the busing issue that they are talking about that it minimizes, is going to minimize busing. One of the antidotes to that is that if we know the residential address, our party agents go to check whether the people who have registered actually live in those areas. Now the data you are giving to us will not have this, will not have the residential address. What problem is that data set creating that we must change? You see, that is the question we are asking as a political party. Does that not make things more opaque than transparent? These are the issues that we are concerned with. That's the reason why there was the press conference. So, in a nutshell, registration at district centers alone is problematic because all the predecessors, Afarijan, Dr. Charlotte was saying, all of them had used 6,000 centers across the country because it has to be within some working proximity. People must not incur cost to register to vote. Otherwise, you are putting some premium or money on the voting process, which is not part of the constitution, and frowns upon the constitution, which makes only 3 points, 3 conditions for a Ghanaian 18 years of time to vote. So these are the issues, and I am shocked that such a thing will come from an institution with a mandate to enfranchise, not disenfranchise. And all the reasons they have given in their press, I don't know whether you have seen their last press statement.
Yes, I have seen.
All these things I'm talking about, that you can register at any time, at your leisure and in ease, no longer queues and what have you. All these things here make it possible within the periodic registration for political parties to participate in that voting process. Now, the issue of the Ghana card now you are ceding the guarantee system. They said no more guarantee system. First of all, I am yet to see any major registration process, any part in the world, that has not have an exception handling mechanism. And what do I mean by that? If you are set with your database ready to register, you need to establish an eligibility criteria and a breeder document. An eligibility criteria is who is eligible to. Good. Number 2, a breeder document is how will that person come and prove eligibility? Now, you select your breeder documents based on certain, requirements in the standards. NIA itself, butchered those standards. So I'm not even going to go there. It's not a subject.
Don't go there, yes.
But no matter how many and how well you select these breeder documents, the document that establishes eligibility, you will have a certain percentage of the population who wouldn't have it.
Okay.
In this case, per NIA statistics, if we were to register today, there are about 4.5, let's say that they register 15 and above, so let's say about 3.5 people who would not have the breeder document.
Yeah.
A window is open for such people to bring the Odikro or the assemblyman or two registered people to come and say, okay, we know this person, he lives here, he's a Ghanaian. Political parties scrutinize, and the person is allowed to register. The EC's database currently, let me say, irrespective of the figure they quoted in their presser, if you look at their presser recently, they say they had about 10 million people who use the NIA card. That cannot be true. Because as at May of 2020, NIA's own figures on their website put the figure that they themselves have issued cards to at 7 million. So how could the EC have registered people with Ghana card, 10 million people with Ghana card, when the NIA was saying that they had 7 million people? You see the kind of electoral commission we have now.
Maybe NIA hadn't updated their data.
Well, please. We even issued a press statement in May on this matter. I said May or June on this matter. And we gave out the statistics. The NIA did not deny it. You see? So the issue here is that I want to state that the only way the EC, because when we raise that they have about 90% of people in the northern sector who have not received their NIA cards, they said that they had this guarantee system. So why do you see the guarantee system from an institution like the Electoral Commission, where political parties are seated and scrutinizing the process, to an institution like NIA, which was just until recently under the office of the president, with a leader who was appointed by the president? Why do you cede that process to them? Because the NIA database itself, don't forget, their selection of breeder documents, per Act 950, you remember we made a lot of noise on that act. NIA came out with 2 very important figures. They said that the birth certificate, which was their primary means of registration, there was a database of 7 million people who had the birth certificate. Yeah. And then there was another 2 million people who had passports. So they had 9 million people who had the breeder document that they required for registration. We actually corrected that by telling them that anybody who has a passport has a birth certificate. Reason being that passport itself uses birth certificate as a breeder document. So it's the birth certificate database is a superset of the passport database. So those who have the so we have 7 million, not 9 million. And if NIA today has registered 70 million, then it stands to reason that 10 million of those people who registered went through the guarantee system. I hope you understand.
I hope the point you've made. I hold on there for me. I think your points are clearly set out as to why you are in opposition to this idea that is being formatted into a possible law soon enough. Let me hear Alfred, and then I'll come. I have a couple of questions that I'll ask you. Yeah. Let me hear Alfred's thoughts. So, Alfred, you hear the questions they have. Some of them, well, he's outlined all of them quite clearly. And the one that I look at is, in getting the Ghana card itself allows for a guarantee system. The Ghana card itself. So, how is...
In the absence of political party agents, it's important to make that point.
No, I'm even saying in getting the Ghana card,
yes,
who
exactly.
can guarantee for you to get
the Ghana card? Do you need political...
No. I'm making that point.
No, but he is making a point of in the absence of political... Yes, you don't bring it in the Ghana card. Thank you very much, and I greet my brother from Central Region. You see, he's an IT expert, and so I was expecting him to say that, listen, I fully embrace this idea of EC wanting to use the NIA, of which he's also been a CEO before there, and also enhance upon systems. He said, oh, Afarijan had not done this thing, and this person did not do that, and this person did not do that. But we are changing. We are in a dynamic world. Things are changing. You don't go into a set way of saying that I don't want to be part of the changing world. NDC, as far back as 2010, used the biometric system for their voting, for their, what do you call it, ward or is it agent, what do you call it, executives. They use the biometric system. They are changing in their ways. But you don't want the whole national body, the Electoral Commission, to change in a set ways. You want them to stick to your ways. Secondly, they give you the chance to come to IPAC. Let's sit down, let's all deliberate. Every party went apart from you because you feel that they should toe your line. Where is this done? In a democracy, where is this done? Let us all go and bring out the issues. Let us look at the problems we had with the last elections. Let us look at the way forward, and let us see how we can all address it so that by 2024, when we get there, we don't fall into this prey of maybe you didn't do this, you did that, you didn't do this, you did that.
Isn't that what they are doing? They are trying to get you there.
I'm coming. They give you the chance to come and sit as a party, all parties involved. Let's all deliberate. You didn't go. Then you go and sit down and hold your own meetings and your own presses and decide that, listen, because we didn't come for the meeting, so go by our ideas. When I was listening to their chairman and was saying that at least give us a listening here, even if you cancel everything, just give us a listening here, then we'll have at least the comfort that you listen to us. You've sent the letter, and they said that the letter should be addressed to IPAC, where they all have to meet. Other parties will also have to deliberate on the point you've brought, like others did. So where has EC gone wrong? You said as far back as 2012, NDC passed the use of the Ghana card, isn't it? Yes. So it means that you believe in the Ghana card system. You know the use of the Ghana card. He's an IT person. He knows that when you take the Ghana card system, that's against what EC was using. The mere paper that has been, what do you call it, a rubber has been put around it. That's against when you take the features of the Ghana card and you just check it. You can get all the biometrics of the person, their address, everything that is stated that EC is not putting in their system. The date of birth, their home address, everything that you need from the person. You get it on the Ghana card. So where have they gone wrong? You see, let us not muddy the waters and act as if EC is doing anything in isolation. It's called everybody on the table. Come together. And he says that your point will be looked at. But let us go to IPAC for everyone to decide on it. I'm not going to do it alone and act as if, oh, I'm just dealing with NDC. Then tomorrow MPP will come and say that, okay, we also want our points to be raised. So let me deal with only MPP. Then tomorrow PPP will come. CPP will come. Other parties will come. Is that how we want to run this Electoral Commission? No. So let us all come together. Let all parties, like we did the first time, when we call an IPAC meeting, bring your points there. Let us all deliberate on it, and everybody will agree on the way forward. But don't come in isolation and think that we should serve just you. You are not the only party we are dealing with. So you see, let us not get things mixed up. He talked about the busing system and the continuous registration, and he talked about what do you call it, the law, the case of the
Tenadi versus Electoral Commission.
You see, that was not a continuous registration. They said every Friday. So it was a singular time that they had to do it. When you talk about continuous registration, which he knows, and you shouldn't confuse it, I can go today and go and register as a Ghanaian using my Ghana card. I can walk to any EC office and register. Tomorrow morning, someone can go. They have not set any particular day that, listen, this is the only day that you can come. That is a Friday, which is a single obligated date for you to go and register. Continuous registration is that you can go anytime, any day, any hour, within the working hours of EC.
The concern there will be that the current process has political parties being able to monitor.
If we are using the Ghana card, which is a key factor, do we need political parties around?
Well, the trust hasn't
every month. No, every month ending or every week ending. Can't you go to EC and demand a printout? You can demand a printout as a political party. Every district office of how many people have registered this week. You can do that. So what is the big deal? You can do that and get your as against your people and see that are these people the people within the government? He knows, and that in the future, he is even looking at a situation where I think they were talking about where you can stay anywhere and vote for your president, and the district you are in, you vote for the parliamentary person over there. So all these are features they are looking at in the future. So when you put all these together, you realize that this situation of you have to be at this particular house address to vote in this area might change in the future. Let us try and develop ourselves. Let us not be stagnant with our ways and our means. Let us move from this politicization of everything. EC is an institution on its own. Listen, I have always stated, and I'll continue to state it, that I don't see the need of any political party sitting at the polling stations on the day of voting. It causes more problems and chaos than anything else. It causes more problems and chaos because
maybe our democracy hasn't reached the point where
who should make it reach to that point?
Well, the trust level.
No, who should make it?
You know, political parties, you are the ones.
So when you keep on knowing as an IT person, knowing very well that whatever device they want to use now, or even devices you approved previously, that it should go through that channel, it should go through that way. That is the best way of us moving our democracy forward. And now they are implementing it. If today they should decide that, okay, we are going to implement ROPAL, I'm sure NDC will get a problem with it. But it has been passed since when? Since Kufuor was in office. President Kufuor was in office. That was when ROPAL was passed for people outside to vote.
I don't think you can overlook the trust issue, really, Alfred.
I can overlook it when we start. Listen, I always say I always say that I can call you.
But the stakes of our politics don't make it so.
I always state that I will call you a thief, even though I don't know you. It's because I believe that me, myself, I'm a thief. So I don't trust myself to trust you. But when we start putting things, and listen, we start monitoring and putting things in the right perspective. Certain things are there, you put aside. Certain things are there, you put aside. Because NDC, maybe in the past, they were managing and monitoring the Electoral Commissioner. So they think everybody does that. We've passed that stage. When you go biometric, everything is automatic, where you can walk and go and check anytime. And I've given him an example. Every week, go and get your printout. You can get a printout. You can ask for it, and DC will give it to you. I can walk to my Electoral Commission office today and say that I want a printout of all those who have registered in this in my constituency, and they'll give it to me. There's no hidden document. So where is the fear and the panic? Why should I wait and set a set date for people to come that Monday is the only time I'm going to open to do continuous registration? It is not continuous registration. It is not continuous registration. And we should not confuse it and confuse the people. Let us speak the truth. And let people know that continuous registration is when we go each and every day that anybody can walk to an EC office and do it. The day that you are saying that, maybe they should come to Brofuyente and come and register people there. because it's maybe a polling station or something. Won't people, you are saying that they will take transport and everything. Have you forgotten that when someone doesn't go to the office and goes to work or goes to form a line to do what do you call it, to register, it's an economic loss that has happened to the person. The person does not go to farm that day. Isn't it an economic loss? And it is even more severe than it is. So if today I decide that Tuesdays are non-fishing days, so the fishermen decide that, listen, because Tuesday I'm not going for fishing, I'm going to do my continuous registration, or I'm going to do my registration. What loss is the person getting over there? We can get a fault with everything we do, but let us be consistent in our words and our ways. Because when you don't trust yourself, you don't trust anybody. I believe that, listen, we should point out everything that we see, but we should have that trust in our institutions, and we should make them powerful to do the work that they have to do, and stop manipulating and maneuvering and using the crybaby political type of thinking to move people to do things to their set beliefs and attitudes.
Alfred seems to have an idealistic approach, saying that, look, let trust exist, but he does raise a significant case. There's a platform available by law, by convention.
There is one thing I wanted to touch on the NIA and the gap that he was talking about, the 1.5. Now, who caused them? When NIA was going around and we were saying that people should go and register, the General Secretary of NDC sat on radio station by radio station announcing that nobody should go and register on NIA. He did that. And today you are come to cry that people have not registered. When you, as a responsible political party, you sit down and you look at your General Secretary to go on air and say that government policy that everybody should go and register above the age of 15. And you tell people that don't go and do your don't go and register on the national identification for you to be identified as a Ghanaian or a non-citizen or whoever you are, and have your card and use your card in the future. If you tell people that they shouldn't do that, and now you come and sit down and cry that people have not registered, who caused them? Now who caused them? Okay. Ghanaians should start blaming them and pointing fingers at them and tell them that they should stop this taking the country back. We need to move forward as a country. We need to stop being opportunistics or people and then transform this country to the way we want it to be. We can only move forward when we think together, even though they could, maybe you might not like it, but tell your people to go out and go and register. Tell every Ghanaian that, listen, this is the time for you to register. Go out and register. They have 2 years. EC it closes its register in 6 months to every election. So from now to 2 years, if you've been able to register over how many? 17 million people in 3, 4, 5 years. Why can't we register about 2 million or 3 million people within 2 years?
And a half.
Why can't we do that? So this is where we have to tell, listen, I have always stated that we now have to ask the NIA. The boss should come out and he shouldn't come and give excuses that I can't register maybe 1.2 this thing within this time. I can't do this, I can't do that. Give us time and dates. Let us work with systems. That, okay, by December, I should be able to register 1 million. By next year, June, I should be able to register 2 million. By this time, I should be able to register these people. And let us hold you responsible.
But
if I haven't gotten the fund, come and state, if I haven't gotten the fund, come and state that government hasn't given me the fund. They will then hold government responsible. Why haven't you given them fund? You are causing the problem.
But he's also clearly stated that, and by law, the NIA is not designed to work with deadlines. So you can't give them deadlines.
I'm saying deadlines, I'm not saying deadlines that, listen, every day there's someone who is they are giving birth to. And every hour there's someone who is turning 15 plus, who would be on the registration and the son of NIA. So it's not as if I'm giving you deadline of this, but I'm telling you that give us time and there's the limits. That, listen, within this time I can register so many people.
Well, if you come to register you.
So where is the problem?
No, they don't have a problem. Their problem is with institutions like the EC,
you see, I brought that in because the EC and you remember Communication Authority.
I give you 25 minutes.
Oh yeah, I know. So he should take his time. He has more time. The EC and NCA complained about the NIA not meeting people's registration, and then they started the the LWAC problem, and then when the lines of the NCA was extended, people stopped going to LWAC, so they also had to withdraw their staff and everything. But what I'm saying is that, like we said, maybe in a day I can register so many people. I'm going to put A, B, C, D in place. I'm at every district. Come and do your registration. I can register 1,000 people. If people don't come and register, that is where now we have to blame the people. We don't blame NIA. But you don't come and tell me that, listen, I can do anything. You don't have to give me times and this. Everybody works with a time and limit.
Okay.
Everybody works with time and limits.
That point
so
is...
the president of the CEO, executive secretary of NIA should not come and sit down and say that, oh, nobody can give them timelines to do that. We are all working with timelines, because there's a registration going on for NCA, there's a timeline for NCA, there's a timeline for Electoral Commission. 6 months to election, Electoral Commission closes its register.
Yeah, but I think that puts a bit of a burden on the NIA in that sense, because then why don't you wait for them to complete, which will come to the point Joseph Kwame has raised. Then wait for them to tell you that, well, we have 90 million people. We finished the 90 million people. So you can now start doing these things, because the rest that we are doing is simply mop up.
When he was being given the position, didn't they give him terms and conditions?
It did not include deadlines from other state agencies.
You know what he told them that I can do? I can register so many people within this time.
Well, he's been very clear on that several times.
I can register so many people within this time. Isn't those times and conditions? Aren't they under times and conditions?
Okay, Alfred,
what
your point is made there on that. But let me come to you, back to you, Osei Kwame and his Cape Coast friend. The point that he's made, there's a platform for this.
Yes.
You're supposed to be at IPAC.
Yes.
For 2 or 3 years now, there's clear distrust between your party and the EC. So you don't show up to express these sentiments. You end up going on your own platforms,
yes,
which doesn't end up working for you.
Yeah,
the second point...
It's not distrust. It's not distrust.
That is what it is.
Because if you put distrust, then they shouldn't work with EC at all.
But that is what it is. There's been a complete breakdown of trust between the NDC
and the EC. They have invited you and you didn't come.
No, there is that both parties have had periods in their life when there have been issues with the EC. Let's not even try and whitewash it. That is what it is. That is the phase they are in now. Why don't you simply just go back and use those platforms to address
first of all,
those concerns? It's very simple.
We have triggered a process, which we believe...
The press conference?
No. We've written for some reforms to be made, because NDC has not had a problem with IPAC until the current Jane Mensah Bosman Asare Electoral Commission took over, you know. And we have several examples of, currently we have 27 political parties. The CI that they are talking about, even though we are not going to IPAC, they wrote to us to bring 2 reps into a committee. This has always been the practice. So we nominated Alaji Hudia here, and then the Deputy Director of Elections, to be on the committee. And that committee, first of all, even though they got it wrong, because the committee drafts the CIs for IPAC, that has been the practice. They attached to it a draft CI for the committee to come and discuss. They invited them for a meeting. As they got there, they were told that the meeting did not come on. The next thing we heard was that the CI had ended up in Parliament. It was with this is a subsidiary
legislative
committee. You see, these kind of shady moves are the reason why we have a problem with this IPAC. You see, it's more of a problem to go and sit at IPAC and have 27 political parties raise their hand and say we have voted for this and that. So more or less, you are legitimizing all these things with your presence. We were here in 2019 when this same EC, backed by these 27 political parties, During the limited registration, said they had 300 people to register. They were going to register only at the district centers, just like they are trying to do. So this issue, they have tried before. 2019, they said they were going to use the VMS system in the district capitals. So everybody should move to the district capitals to go and register. We held a press conference on this. We raised an issue and it got media attention. Lo and behold, in our press conference, we indicated that first of all, 250 centers across the country, as opposed to 6,000 centers, 250 centers will lead to us disenfranchising people. We raised the issues that VMS system was not designed for. It is for continuous registration. And by the way, the continuous registration that I am saying, I am not the one calling continuous registration. It's the Electoral Commission calling it. And there are several processes they have referred to. That process of registering every Friday as continuous registration. It's not my word. It's not me using it. And if you go back to the ruling actually asked EC to implement it. So if we agree here that the EC went against the ruling of the Supreme Court, that's another matter in law. You understand? So I didn't call it continuous registration. It is the Electoral Commission. Good. It is this same EC backed by IPAC projecting 300,000, yet they registered 1.2 million. It is the same IPAC that issued EC and IPAC that issued a communique that praised the EC for registering 1.2 million, even though they projected 300,000, citing reasons of effective PR of the Electoral Commission. You know, PR campaigns don't make people turn 18 overnight. So the people actually existed. And that's the point we're making. We said that go to statistical service and take the data of registrable population. When we went, they gave us 1.7 million people. The same EC backed by these parties at IPAC rejected it and went with 300,000. At the end of the day, they said registrable people of 300,000, we got 1.2 million. Clearly, there was a problem.
So you've established that
the same. I'm just giving you the history of IPAC.
No, I understand.
You know why? And then the VMS system, which we said would not work, collapsed. They had to go back to the BDDs, the BDRs, quickly service some of them and send it. And 95% of people who registered at that time registered using the system. EC and this same IPAC said that they were not, they were obsolete. You understand? The same Electoral Commission, backed by this same IPAC, indicated that this guarantee system is a time-tested tradition. When we said that few people have their Ghana cards in their hands, they said that they were going to use the guarantee system to mop up the difference in those who didn't have their Ghana card. And that they said that the guarantee system is a time-tested tradition. Today they have issued a press statement condemning the same time-tested tradition in mass registration exercises. So this is the IPAC that we are talking about. We have, and let me also state that the committee to vet this so-called already drafted CI by the Electoral Commission, they gave 1 rep to NDC, 1 rep to MPP, and then 3 reps to all other political parties. Do you know what that means? That means that political parties, without one single member in parliament, have majority in that committee that will decide on the law.
That's not true.
What does that mean? If you are MPP,
27 committee and political parties, and you give 25 of them.
I didn't say 27. Please, I beg you. I beg you. I did not say that 27 political parties have only 3 reps. That's not what I said. What I'm saying is that I said political parties without a single member of parliament have 3 reps.
That's 25.
That's what I'm saying. Political parties without a single member of parliament have 3 reps. 2 political parties with all members of parliament except 1 independent have 2 reps. That is the point that I'm making here.
All right.
So if I may continue,
In
Now,
2 minutes, I need to take a. Hold on. Let me just take a quick break, in fact.
Okay.
And then I come back and then we wrap this up. The big issue right back. Welcome back. Finally, because you're making a point.
So the last point I want to raise, and the most important one, I think, is that at IPAC, before the 2020 elections, EC presented us with pink sheets, and the most important field on that pink sheet is the field where you write the number of people who have been verified biometrically, who have passed through the BVD. That pink sheet did not have that field. We raised the issue at IPAC. This time, these political parties could not stand the gravity of, that omission, the consequences of that omission. So IPAC was unanimous in that their decision that the pink sheet should change. The EC agreed to it, only for us to find on election day that it is the same pink sheet they were using, and that stamp, they said they will put a stamp on it, and somebody will write that. This is the confusion, one of the confusion things that were a source of confusion in the 2020 election, where you have a lot of the places the stamps were not put, and the people who didn't do it, claim that they didn't know that they had to do that for lack of, adequate training or what have you. Some people to put the stamp didn't write any figure in it. Some of the places there were 3 categories of pink sheets. Some with stamp put and figure written. Some with stamp put no figure written, and then others the stamp was not put at all. That is the sort of election that we had, that the current EC, with this current IPAC, say it is the most credible election that we have had. Now let me go back to NIA, this thing, under the same 3 minutes, in 30 seconds. The NIA has given time and date several times, starting from September of 2017. They said they were going to register all Ghanaians in 12 months and issue them with national ID card. They've done that, I think, 7 times, giving deadlines as to when they will register all Ghanaians. Let me also offer this, that even if you have 1 million people left to register, it takes the same time, it takes the same monetary resources,
definitely,
and it takes the same level of proximity if you really want to register such people. Because that's the reason why every limited registration we have had, the Electoral Commission goes to the polling station level. Because that is when somebody can walk and go and register. And the money to deploy somebody for 10 days there is the same amount of resources you need, even if only 5 people are coming per day to come and register.
So the NIA must tell us, or the government must tell us, since the instant issuance did not work, when are they going back to go and distribute the cards at the same level they register the people? They are silent on that.
Okay, point well made. Let me take a couple of messages. EC should not attempt to disenfranchise people, because 2024, everybody is wild. And we want a peaceful election. This is Alice doing in London, sending that message through. A couple of other ones that I just want to get to. A couple of people also say, for instance, it says Ghana card is not for election but for identifying each one in Ghana to curb crime and facilitate traceability. So we should stop the voter ID connections, because that will not put bread on the table. Well, there is a connection. Risk is we are losing bank accounts, that is access to cash. Okay, your point is well made. This one is on the e-levy. It says he's being charged on the e-levy, but that is beside the point. Franklin. Okay, Franklin, I think we lost Alfred. So I'll give the final word to Alfred.
He's gone on for more too.
Alfred, I'll give you the last minute.
Thank you.
And then I'll wrap up.
You see, I always state this, that losers are always afraid. And they always want to create fear and panic before any system starts. It's like when you know that things are not going well for you, then you start shouting, hey, we are me, oh, yeah, we are me, oh, yeah, we are me. Meanwhile, even the elections haven't started.
But why, the whole process, you spoke about trust. Why don't you believe that this position is also held out of giving us credible elections and nothing else?
Because they invited you for a place where we should all discuss it, and you didn't go.
Yeah, but
that's why I have a problem with you.
It's okay.
I have a problem with you. Yes. You haven't addressed it, because you can't tell me that because you didn't go and you've written, so they should take your writing as the finality.
But he has explained.
It doesn't work that way.
The performance of IPAC, and why we boycotted.
No, Alfred, go. Finish. Go on. You have a minute. Finish.
You see, they just want to create that fear and panic in the system, so that when they lose the next elections, as they are seeing they will lose, they think now with the economic crunch, so everything is going negative for MPP. But now the president is going around and people are seeing what the work he's doing. It's not as if they've gone to do the pictorial view in the green book. This one, TV stations are going with him and people are seeing what he's doing. Even in their own stronghold, he's doing the dual carriage there and everything. But it shows that they don't believe in themselves and their leadership. Even as we speak now, there are two people between the general secretary and their chairman. They are having issues, and they come on the paper. I'm still the chairman. Don't come sabotage me.
Topic.
No, it's the topic. So even within themselves, they don't trust themselves. So how can they trust EC? If within yourself, as the chairman, you don't even trust yourself that your general secretary is sabotaging you, how can you even go and trust someone else?
Competition is the heart of democracy.
Thank you. So they should see that everybody is competing. Whilst we are focused and we are going for meetings and putting our points down there and making our point and coming back to the 27 that he's talking about. You see, we said there are 27 political parties. There are 2 political parties that have reps in parliament. So they gave them 1 each. The other 25 that don't have reps were given 3, and you have a problem with that. Then I don't think, why should you have a problem with that? So how many do you want? The 1 each? Maybe that will make the meeting more fruitful. And secondly, when they form a committee, unless they've given you the mandate as a committee to maybe go and draft an LI or something, is the onus is lying on the Electoral Commission to draft an LI and send it to Parliament.
But at least let there be discussions on it.
What I'm saying is that unless the committee... No, you see, unless the committee has been given the specific mandate, your terms and references that you go and draft the LI. The Electoral Commission is the one who should draft an LI to Parliament, and you should note that there is no legal document
Which has
stating
been
that
the
the
case.
committee should be the one drafting an airline.
Which has been,
Alfred,
and you should know that. So
Thank you very
they should
much.
stop being losers and focus.
My central reason caucus.
And work well for the next elections. Because
Alfred,
whether they like it or not, we are focused. We are going to work with whichever government organization is there. They can still cry foul, baby, and we'll still win this election.
Alfred Thompson and Osei Kwame Griffiths, my two central region compatriots, wrap up the show for. My name is Godfrey Akoto-Boafo. Citi Business Olympics, here we come.